3 years she survived in darkness. 3 years she hid beneath the feet of the most dangerous alpha king alive. But tonight, Maya's luck runs out. Caught stealing from the very man who could destroy her with a single command, she faces a choice: reveal the truth that ruined her life, or die with her secrets. Stay until the end to witness the moment everything changes. If you love survival stories with fierce heroines and forbidden bonds, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. The cellar smelled of damp stone and ancient rot, a scent Maya had long since stopped noticing. She moved through the darkness with practiced silence, her bare feet finding purchase on the uneven floor, as if the passages themselves had memorized her steps. 3 years. 3 years since she'd descended into this labyrinth beneath Blackthorn Castle, and 3 years since she'd seen sunlight without fear clawing at her chest. Tonight, like every night, Maya was hunting. Not for prey in the traditional sense, though she'd caught her share of rats when desperation bit harder than pride, but for the scraps and forgotten stores that kept her alive in this underground tomb. The castle's kitchens threw out enough waste to feed a small pack, and Maya had learned every route the servants took, every blind corner where she could slip through shadows unseen. She crouched behind a stack of wine barrels, listening. Above her, the castle hummed with life, footsteps echoing through stone corridors, voices raised in laughter or in anger, the distant howl of wolves running beneath the full moon, the sounds of a world she no longer belonged to. Maya's stomach growled, a sharp reminder of why she risked these upper passages. The kitchens were close now, just beyond the servants' stairwell. If she timed it right, she could slip in during the changing of the guard, grab what she needed, and vanish before anyone noticed the displaced air. She'd done it 100 times before, but tonight was different. Tonight, the Alpha King himself walked the halls. Maya sensed him before she heard him, a pressure in the air, like the moment before lightning strikes. Her wolf, dormant and suppressed for so long, stirred beneath her skin with a whimper of recognition that made her blood run cold. She pressed herself against the wall, willing her heartbeat to slow, her breathing to still. No, not now, not him. Heavy boots struck stone in a measured rhythm. Each footfall sent vibrations through the floor that Maya felt in her bones. She'd mapped every route through these cellars, knew every hiding spot, every exit, but she'd never accounted for him being down here. Alpha King Milo Voss rarely descended to the lower levels. What could have drawn him to these forgotten passages? Maya's fingers found the familiar grooves in the wall, her escape route, a narrow shaft that led deeper into the cellars. She could slip away, disappear into the darkness, where even an alpha's enhanced senses couldn't track her. She'd done it before when guards came too close, when servants ventured into her territory, but her body wouldn't move. The bond, that cursed undeniable pull, had awakened the moment he'd entered her domain. It sang through her veins like poison and honey mixed, demanding she stay, demanding she reveal herself, demanding she submit to a connection she'd spent 3 years denying. The footsteps stopped. "I can smell you." Milo's voice cut through the darkness, low and controlled, with an edge that promised violence. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She remained perfectly still, even as every instinct screamed at her to run. 3 years I've felt something in my castle, he continued, moving closer. A presence, a scent I couldn't place. My guards thought me paranoid. My advisors suggested exhaustion. A pause. But I know better. I've always known better. Maya's fingers tightened on the wall. She could see him now, a shadow darker than the surrounding gloom, massive and predatory. Even in human form, Milo Voss radiated the kind of power that made lesser wolves bare their throats. His reputation preceded him, ruthless, calculating, unmerciful to those who crossed him. And she'd been living under his roof like a parasite for 3 years. "Show yourself," Milo commanded, and the alpha authority in his voice nearly drove Maya to her knees. She bit down on her tongue until she tasted blood, using the pain to anchor herself against the compulsion. She'd built up resistance during her years of hiding, had to, or she would have exposed herself every time a dominant wolf passed nearby. But this was different. This wasn't just any dominant wolf. This was an alpha king, and worse, this was... No, don't think it. Don't acknowledge it. "Interesting," Milo murmured, and Maya heard the shift in his tone, curiosity replacing command. "You resist. That takes either tremendous strength or tremendous stupidity. His silhouette moved, blocking her escape route. "Which are you, little ghost?" Maya's mind raced. She could surrender, throw herself at his mercy, but mercy from Milo Voss was a myth told to comfort the weak. She could fight, but she'd seen what happened to those who challenged him. The smart choice was to run, to use every trick she'd learned in 3 years of survival. But before she could move, Milo struck. His hand shot out with inhuman speed, fingers closing around her wrist and yanking her from the shadows. Maya gasped as she stumbled into a shaft of moonlight filtering through a high window. For the first time in 3 years, she stood face to face with the Alpha King, and he was staring at her like she'd risen from the dead. "Impossible," Milo breathed, his grip tightening. His eyes, silver in the moonlight, wolf eyes, raked over her face with an intensity that made her skin burn. "You're—" Maya twisted, using a technique she'd learned from watching the guards spar. She dropped her weight, rotated her wrist against his thumb, and pulled. For a moment, she thought it might work. For a moment, she felt his grip loosen in surprise. Then his other hand caught her throat. Not hard enough to choke. Milo lifted her just enough that her toes scraped the floor, just enough to remind her exactly how outmatched she was. His face was inches from hers now, and Maya could see the war raging behind those silver eyes. Confusion, recognition, and beneath it all, the same terrible pull that was tearing her apart from the inside. "Who are you?" he demanded, and this time there was no alpha command, just raw need to understand. "Why do you smell like—" He stopped, jaw clenching. "Why do you smell like home?" Maya's hands came up to his wrist, not to fight, but to steady herself. The bond roared to life at the contact, and she saw the moment it hit him too. The way his pupils dilated, the way his breathing changed. 3 years she'd hidden from this. 3 years she'd starved and suffered and survived in darkness to avoid this exact moment. "Let me go," she whispered, hating the way her voice shook. "Please, you don't want to know who I am." Milo's laugh was bitter. "I've spent 3 years feeling like something vital was missing from my castle. 3 years of dreams about a woman I've never met. 3 years of my wolf howling for someone who doesn't exist." He lowered her slightly, bringing them eye to eye. "So you're wrong, little ghost. I need to know who you are." Maya met his gaze, and in that moment, she made a choice. Not the safe choice, not the smart choice, but the only choice she had left. "My name is Maya Thorne," she said quietly, "and 3 years ago your most trusted advisor, Cameron Locke, framed me for murder and had me exiled from my pack to die." The words hung in the air between them like a death sentence. Maya watched the confusion on Milo's face shift to disbelief, then to something harder to read. His grip on her throat loosened, and she slid down until her feet touched solid ground, but he didn't release her, didn't step back. "Cameron," Milo repeated, and his voice had gone dangerously soft. "You're accusing my beta of—" "I'm accusing him of killing your sister." The temperature in the corridor dropped. Milo's eyes flashed pure wolf, and for a heartbeat, Maya thought she'd made a fatal mistake. That he'd tear her throat out right here, right now, for daring to speak such words. But then he spoke, and his voice was emptier than any rage could be. "Elaine died in a rogue attack. We found her body. We hunted down the rogues responsible." "You found the rogues Cameron told you were responsible," Maya corrected, and her own voice steadied as old fury burned through her fear. "The ones he paid to take the fall. The ones who couldn't defend themselves because he'd already poisoned them with wolfsbane." Milo's hand fell away from her throat, and Maya resisted the urge to run. She'd started this truth. She had to finish it, even if it killed her. "I was Elaine's friend," Maya continued, the memories flooding back with painful clarity. "One of her personal guards. I was there the night she died, and it wasn't rogues who killed her. It was Cameron. I saw him. I tried to stop him, and he—" Her voice cracked. "He was stronger. When the other guards arrived, he'd already arranged the scene, planted evidence, and when I tried to tell the truth, he had witnesses who swore I'd been conspiring with rogues, that I'd led them to her." She could see Milo processing her words, see the conflict in his eyes. Belief warring with loyalty. Hope warring with the agony of reopening old wounds. "Why should I believe you?" he asked finally. "You've been living in my castle like a rat for 3 years. For all I know, you're the rogue you claim to be, spinning lies to save your own skin. You shouldn't believe me, Maya agreed. You should investigate. Look at the evidence with fresh eyes. Question the witnesses Cameron provided. Ask yourself why your beta was so quick to exile me instead of executing me as a traitor should be executed. She stepped closer, ignoring the warning growl that rumbled in his chest. Ask yourself why the bond between us exists if I'm truly what he claimed. That last point hit home. Maya saw the recognition flash across Milo's face, the same recognition that had been haunting her for 3 years. True mates didn't lie to each other. The bond didn't form between enemies. But before Milo could respond, footsteps echoed from the stairwell above, multiple sets, moving fast. "My lord?" a voice called down. "We heard voices. Is everything—" "I'm fine," Milo called back, his eyes never leaving Maya's face. "Return to your posts." A hesitation, then, "Yes, my lord." The footsteps retreated, but the interruption had broken the spell. Milo's expression hardened, the vulnerable confusion replaced by the mask of an alpha king who trusted no one. "You'll come with me," he said, and it wasn't a request. "There are cells in the North Tower. Comfortable enough, but secure. You'll stay there while I investigate your claims." "And if you don't find proof?" Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then Cameron was right about you, and you'll face justice for Elaine's murder." Milo's jaw clenched. "But if you're telling the truth, if Cameron truly betrayed me, then I'll need you alive to testify." It wasn't trust. It wasn't even belief, but it was more than Maya had dared hope for. "There's one problem," she said slowly. "If Cameron finds out I'm still alive, that I'm here making accusations, he'll move against me, against us. He's had 3 years to solidify his position, to place his people in key positions. If you lock me in the North Tower, everyone will know within an hour." Milo's eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting?" "Let me return to the cellars," Maya said quickly. "Keep my presence secret while you investigate. It's what I've been doing anyway, staying hidden, staying alive. The only difference is now you know I'm here." "Absolutely not." Milo's tone was final. "I'm not letting you disappear back into the shadows. For all I know, you'll vanish the moment I turn my back." "Then you don't understand," Maya countered, frustration bleeding into her voice. "I've survived 3 years down here. 3 years of learning every passage, every secret, every weakness in your castle's defenses. If I wanted to vanish, I could do it whether you locked me up or not. The cellars are my territory, and in my territory, I'm the one with power." It was a bold claim, borderline insolent, but Maya needed him to understand. She couldn't survive in a cell, exposed and vulnerable. But in the darkness, in the forgotten places beneath the castle, she was something more than a broken exile. She was a ghost, and ghosts were hard to kill. Milo studied her for a long moment, and Maya could practically see him weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, he stepped back, giving her space to breathe. "1 week," he said. "You have 1 week in your cellars while I investigate, but you'll report to me every night. Here, in this corridor, when the moon reaches its peak. Miss one meeting, and I'll hunt you down myself. Understand?" Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. "And Maya?" Milo's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "If you're lying to me about Cameron, I'll make your death so slow that you'll beg for mercy that will never come. But if you're telling the truth—" He paused, something like pain flickering across his face. "If Cameron killed my sister, there isn't a hell dark enough for what I'll do to him." With that, he turned and walked back toward the stairs, his footsteps echoing into silence. Maya remained frozen in the moonlight, her heart pounding, her wolf whimpering with the agony of watching their mate walk away. But she'd done it. She'd survived the first encounter. And now, for the first time in 3 years, she had something she'd thought lost forever. She had hope. Maya didn't return to her usual sleeping spot, a nest of stolen blankets in a forgotten storage room. Instead, she went deeper, to a place she'd discovered in her second year below ground, a natural cave system that predated the castle itself. Here, where the stone was ancient and the darkness absolute, she could think without fear of discovery. Her hands were shaking. The adrenaline crash hit her all at once, and Maya sank to the ground, wrapping her arms around her knees. She'd just accused the beta of the most powerful pack in the region of murder. She'd revealed herself to the one person she'd spent 3 years hiding from. She'd broken every rule of survival she'd learned, and the bond, the cursed, impossible bond, was still singing in her veins, calling her back to him. "Stupid," she whispered into the darkness. "Stupid, stupid, stupid." But what choice had she had? The moment Milo caught her scent, the game was over. She could have run, could have tried to disappear deeper into the cellars, but he would have hunted her, would have found her eventually. Better to control the revelation than have it forced from her. And if she was being honest with herself, brutally, painfully honest, part of her was relieved. 3 years of hiding had worn her down to nothing. 3 years of loneliness had nearly broken her. The bond with Milo, unwanted as it was, had been a constant ache that no amount of distance could cure. Now, at least, the pretending was over. Maya pulled a small leather pouch from her hiding spot and carefully counted her treasures. A silver coin she'd found in the cellars, a scrap of fabric from Elaine's favorite dress that she'd stolen before her exile, and a small vial of liquid that glinted in the darkness. Wolfsbane extract. Proof, if she could get someone to test it, that matched the poison found in the rogues' bodies. She'd stolen it from Cameron's quarters 2 years ago, in a desperate nighttime raid that had nearly gotten her killed. It was her insurance, her evidence. But would Milo believe it? Would he even look at it? Or would his loyalty to Cameron blind him? A sound echoed through the cave. Distant footsteps, too light to be guards. Maya tensed, her hand moving to the crude knife she'd fashioned from a broken sword. But then a familiar scent reached her and she relaxed slightly. "I know you're down here, ghost girl." The voice belonged to Thomas, a young kitchen servant who'd discovered her presence 6 months ago. Instead of reporting her, he'd struck a deal. Silence in exchange for Maya handling the rat problem that plagued the lower kitchens. It was the closest thing to friendship she'd known in 3 years. "What do you want, Thomas?" Maya called softly. The boy appeared at the cave entrance, his lantern casting wild shadows on the walls. He was barely 16, all gangly limbs and nervous energy, but his eyes were sharp. "Heard something interesting tonight," Thomas said, setting down the lantern. "Heard the Alpha King himself came down to the cellars. Heard voices, then silence. Then he comes back up looking like he'd seen a spirit." The boy's eyes gleamed with curiosity. "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" Maya sighed. Of course Thomas had noticed. The boy noticed everything. "It's complicated," she said finally. "Everything's complicated in this castle." Thomas sat cross-legged near the entrance, maintaining a respectful distance. "But I've never seen the Alpha look like that, like his world just tilted sideways." He paused. "Are you in trouble?" "Probably," Maya admitted. "But maybe less than I was before. It's hard to say." Thomas nodded slowly. "Cameron's been in a mood all evening, snapping at servants, breaking things. Almost like he knows something's wrong but can't figure out what." His gaze sharpened. "You finally told the Alpha about him, didn't you? About what really happened to Lady Elaine?" Maya's head snapped up. "How did you—" "I listen," Thomas said simply. "Been listening for 3 years. Heard Cameron talking to his men late at night when they thought no one was around. Heard them laughing about how easy it was to frame you, how the Alpha would never question his beta's word." The boy's expression hardened. "I wanted to tell someone, but who would believe a kitchen servant?" Hope flickered in Maya's chest. "You'd testify? If it came to that?" In a heartbeat. Thomas stood, brushing dust from his trousers. "Lady Elaine was kind to me. When I first came to the castle, the other servants picked on me because I was small. She put a stop to it, made me her personal messenger so no one would dare touch me." His voice went rough. "She deserved better than what Cameron did to her." Maya felt tears prick her eyes, the first tears she'd allowed herself in years. "Thank you," she whispered. Thomas shrugged, uncomfortable with emotion. "Just speaking truth, that's not worth thanks." He picked up his lantern. "But Ghost Girl, whatever you're planning, do it fast. Cameron's getting nervous, and nervous wolves make mistakes. Or they make corpses. Either way, time's not on your side." With that cryptic warning, the boy disappeared back into the tunnels, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts and her dwindling hope. She had 1 week. 1 week to help Milo see the truth. 1 week before Cameron realized she was alive and moved to silence her permanently. 1 week to decide if the bond with Milo was worth dying for. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the pull of that bond like a compass pointing north. Somewhere above her, in the castle proper, Milo was probably pacing his chambers, trying to reconcile the accusations of a supposed exile with 3 years of unwavering trust in his beta. She hoped he'd choose wisely. She hoped he'd choose her. Because if he didn't, if he sided with Cameron despite the evidence, then Maya's 3 years of survival would end in the executioner's blade. And this time, there would be no cellar deep enough to hide in. The moon rose higher outside, marking the passage of hours. Maya forced herself to eat the stale bread she'd stashed, to drink the clean water she'd collected from underground springs. Survival first. Everything else second. But as she settled into her nest of blankets, preparing for a few hours of uneasy sleep, one thought kept circling through her mind. Tomorrow night she'd have to face Milo again. And the next night. And the next. 7 meetings. 7 chances to convince him. 7 opportunities for Cameron to discover her existence and end this before it began. Maya's hand found the small vial of wolfsbane, and she held it close to her chest like a talisman. "Elaine," she whispered into the darkness, "if you can hear me, if there's any justice in this world, help me finish what you started. Help me make him pay." The darkness offered no answer, but somewhere in the castle above, Maya could have sworn she heard a wolf howl, a sound of recognition, of awakening, of something that had been sleeping finally stirring to life. The hunt had begun, and this time Maya wasn't the prey. The first meeting came sooner than Maya expected. She was making her way through the eastern tunnels, checking her snares for rats when she felt it, that pull, sharp and insistent, like a hook buried in her chest. The bond demanded she go to him, now, despite the sun still hanging in the sky and the castle bustling with activity above. Maya gritted her teeth and ignored it. She'd agreed to meet at Moonpeak, not whenever Milo's impatience got the better of him. If he wanted answers, he could wait like she'd waited for 3 years. But the pull intensified, becoming pain that radiated through her bones. Maya's knees buckled, and she caught herself against the tunnel wall, gasping. This wasn't just the bond. This was an alpha command, raw and undeniable, channeled through their connection. "Bastard," she hissed through clenched teeth, fighting against the compulsion with every scrap of will she possessed. But her feet were already moving, carrying her toward the designated corridor, whether she wanted to go or not. She found Milo waiting in the shadows, his expression dark as a thunderstorm. "You ignore me," he said without preamble. "I call, and you ignore me." "I agreed to meet at Moonpeak," Maya shot back, anger overriding caution. "Not whenever you decide to yank my leash like a disobedient dog." Milo's eyes flashed wolf silver. "Careful, Maya. You may have information I need, but that doesn't make you untouchable." "Then touch me." Maya stepped closer, reckless with fury. "Go ahead. Break my neck. Kill me like Cameron wanted 3 years ago. But you'll never know the truth, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you murdered your mate to protect your sister's real killer." The words hung between them like drawn blades. Milo's jaw clenched so hard Maya heard his teeth grind. But he didn't move, didn't strike. Instead, he turned away, one hand braced against the wall, as if holding himself back from violence. "I spent the day reviewing old reports," he said finally, his voice carefully controlled. "From the night Elaine died. The witness statements Cameron provided. The evidence against you." Maya's heart hammered. And there are inconsistencies. Milo's shoulders were rigid with tension. Small things. Timeline discrepancies, testimonies that contradict each other in subtle ways, nothing definitive, but enough to raise questions. Questions you never asked before because you trusted Cameron. Yes, the admission seemed to cost him, but I'm asking them now, which is why I need you to tell me everything. Not accusations, facts, what you saw that night. Maya closed her eyes, the memories rushing back with visceral clarity. She'd buried them deep, tried to forget, but they'd been waiting all along, sharp as broken glass. "Elaine received a message that evening," Maya began slowly. "She didn't tell me who it was from, but she seemed excited, hopeful. She told me to wait in the outer chamber while she met with someone in the garden pavilion." Maya's hands clenched into fists. "I should have insisted on going with her, should have sensed something was wrong. But she was the Alpha's sister, and I was just a guard. I followed orders." "What happened next?" "I heard her scream." The words came faster now, driven by old guilt and older rage. By the time I reached the pavilion, Cameron was there. He had his hands around her throat, and she was... Maya's voice cracked. She was already dying. The wolfsbane was in her system. I could smell it. Milo's head turned slightly, listening with predatory focus. I shifted, Maya continued, tried to stop him, but Cameron's stronger than he looks, and he was prepared. He had a silver blade. Cut me here. She touched her ribs where a scar still ached in cold weather. I went down hard. When I came to, the other guards were there. Cameron was covered in Elaine's blood, crying, pointing at me, saying I'd led rogues to her, that he'd arrived too late to save her but in time to stop me from escaping. And the rogues, the bodies we found? Already dead when I regained consciousness, arranged around the pavilion like props in a play. Maya met Milo's gaze. Cameron had it all planned. The message to lure Elaine out, the wolfsbane to weaken her, the rogues to take the blame. The only thing he didn't plan for was me fighting back hard enough to wound him. That's why he didn't kill me outright. Too many witnesses, and I'd marked him. Easier to exile me and let the wilderness do his dirty work. Milo was quiet for a long moment, processing. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerously soft. Cameron has a scar. On his left shoulder. He told me he got it fighting the rogues. He got it from my claws. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. Maya could see the war raging behind Milo's eyes. 3 years of friendship and trust battling against evidence that couldn't be ignored. I need proof, Milo said finally. Something concrete. Your testimony alone isn't enough to condemn a beta. Maya pulled the small vial from her pocket. This is wolfsbane extract, the same compound that killed Elaine. I stole it from Cameron's private chambers 2 years ago. Milo took the vial, holding it up to examine in the dim light. How do I know you didn't plant this yourself? Because Cameron's chambers are warded against intruders. Only his most trusted people have access, and I'm supposed to be dead. Ask yourself, how would a dead woman get past wards that even your own wolves can't breach? Maya's voice hardened. And ask yourself why your beta keeps wolfsbane in his rooms at all. It's not standard equipment for a guard commander. Milo pocketed the vial. I'll have it tested, compared against the poison found in Elaine's system. It'll match. If it does... Milo turned to face her fully, and Maya saw something raw and terrible in his expression. If it does, I'll need more than poison. I'll need witnesses, evidence that can't be disputed. Because when I move against Cameron, it has to be absolute. One chance, one strike. I have a witness, Maya said. Thomas, a kitchen servant. He's heard Cameron talking about the murder when he thought no one was listening. A servant's testimony against a beta? Milo shook his head. It'll be dismissed as hearsay or coercion. We need someone with standing, someone Cameron can intimidate. Then we're at an impasse. Maya felt exhaustion creeping in. Because everyone with standing is either loyal to Cameron or too afraid to speak against him. Milo stepped closer, and Maya's breath caught as the bond flared between them. This close, she could see the silver flecks in his eyes, could smell the cedar and smoke scent that made her wolf whimper with longing. Tell me something, Milo said quietly. Why didn't you run? You had 3 years to disappear, to go rogue, to find another pack. Why stay here, in the belly of the beast? Maya's answer came without thought. Because the bond wouldn't let me. Because every time I tried to leave, I got to the border and couldn't take another step. Because even knowing you'd probably kill me if you found me, I couldn't abandon... She stopped, horrified by what she'd almost admitted. Couldn't abandon your mate, Milo finished softly. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with unexpected gentleness. I know. I felt it too. 3 years of dreams, 3 years of searching for something I couldn't name. 3 years of my wolf screaming that something vital was missing. Maya leaned into his touch despite herself, starved for contact after so long alone. This is a bad idea. Even if we prove Cameron's guilt, the pack will never accept me. I'm damaged goods. A wolf who lived like a rat. They'll see me as weak. Let them try. Milo's voice went hard with possessive promise. You survived 3 years in impossible conditions. You maintained your sanity, your strength, your will to fight. That's not weakness. That's the kind of resilience I need in a mate. The word mate sent electricity through Maya's veins, but before she could respond, footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. Milo cursed and stepped back. Go, now. Don't let them see you. Maya melted into the shadows, watching as 6 guards entered the corridor with Cameron himself at their head. The beta's handsome face was composed, but Maya caught the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes swept the darkness as if searching for something. My lord, Cameron said smoothly, forgive the intrusion. The guards reported hearing voices from the cellars. I thought I should investigate personally. Just me, testing the acoustics, Milo replied, his tone casual. I've been thinking of converting some of these lower levels into additional training rooms. Wanted to see how sound carries. Cameron's smile didn't reach his eyes. At this hour, my lord? Surely such planning could wait until morning. I don't recall asking your permission for how I spend my time, Cameron. The temperature in the corridor dropped. The guards shifted uncomfortably, sensing the sudden tension between their leaders. Maya pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing, as Cameron's gaze swept past her hiding spot. Of course not, my lord. I merely thought... Cameron paused, his nostrils flaring slightly. Is that perfume? Someone else was here. Milo's expression didn't change. You're imagining things. Am I? Cameron took a step closer, and Maya saw the calculation in his eyes. For 3 years there have been rumors. Stolen food. Displaced items. Shadows that move when no one should be there. I've dismissed them as superstition, but perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps you're paranoid. Milo's voice carried a warning edge. Or perhaps you're questioning my word. The challenge hung in the air. Cameron's jaw tightened, but he backed down, bowing his head in a show of submission. Never, my lord. I live to serve. Then serve by returning to your post. All of you. The guards filed out, but Cameron lingered at the threshold. My lord, a word of advice, if I may. These lower levels are dangerous, unstable. Should you wish to inspect them further, please allow me to assign a proper escort for your safety. It was a threat wrapped in concern, and they all knew it. Milo's smile was sharp as a blade. Noted, Beta. Dismissed. Cameron left, but the air remained charged with suspicion. Maya waited until the footsteps faded completely before emerging from her hiding spot. He knows, she whispered. Maybe not everything, but he knows something's wrong. Then we need to move faster. Milo's expression was grim. Tomorrow night, I'm hosting a council meeting. All the senior pack members will attend, including Cameron. That gives you time to gather any additional evidence you can find. Anything that ties him to Elaine's murder. You can't confront him in council. Not yet. He'll have prepared defenses, alibis, witnesses of his own. I'm not going to confront him. Milo's smile was predatory. I'm going to watch him. See how he reacts when I announce that we're reopening the investigation into Elaine's death. That new evidence has come to light suggesting the rogues weren't acting alone. Maya's eyes widened. He'll panic. Exactly. And panicked wolves make mistakes. They reach out to co-conspirators. They try to eliminate loose ends. Milo's gaze locked onto hers. They reveal themselves. Or they eliminate the threat before it can expose them. Maya felt ice slide down her spine. Milo, if he even suspects I'm alive, he won't. You'll stay hidden in the cellars. I'll post guards I trust on all the entrances. No one gets down here without my knowledge. You don't understand. Cameron has people everywhere, guards, servants, pack members. They're loyal to him, not you. Then I'll find out who they are. Milo's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. One way or another, this ends. Either Cameron proves his innocence or he burns for what he's done. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to point out the 1,000 ways this plan could go wrong. But she saw the determination in Milo's face and knew he'd made up his mind. The Alpha King was moving toward justice and nothing would stop him. She just hoped they'd both survive it. The next day crept by with agonizing slowness. Maya couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even in her deepest sanctuary. She checked and rechecked her escape routes, memorized new hiding spots, prepared for the worst. Thomas found her in the afternoon, his face pale with worry. Cameron's men are searching the cellars, the boy whispered urgently. pretending to look for rats, but they're organized, methodical. They're looking for something specific. How many? 6 that I've seen, maybe more. Thomas glanced over his shoulder nervously. Ghost girl, I think you should run. Get out while you still can. I can't. Not yet. Maya gripped the boy's shoulder. Listen to me. Tonight, there's going to be a council meeting. I need you to be near the Great Hall. Watch who comes and goes, especially watch Cameron. If he sends any messages, tries to slip away, anything unusual, you find me immediately. Can you do that? Thomas nodded, though fear shone in his eyes. What's happening? Justice, Maya said grimly. Or war. Depends on how Cameron plays his hand. The boy left, and Maya returned to waiting. The hardest part of survival, she'd learned, wasn't the hunger or the cold or even the loneliness. It was the waiting, the moments between action where fear had time to grow roots. She thought about Elaine, about their friendship, cut short by Cameron's ambition. Elaine had been kind in a world that rewarded cruelty, gentle where others were harsh. She'd treated Maya as an equal despite the difference in their ranks, had shared her hopes and dreams during long night watches. One conversation echoed in Maya's memory now, crystal clear. Sometimes I wonder if Cameron truly cares for me, or if he just wants what I represent, Elaine had said one evening, watching the sunset from the garden pavilion, the same pavilion where she'd later die. He's so attentive, so perfect, but I never feel like he sees me. Just the alpha's sister, just the path to power. Maya had dismissed the concern then, attributing it to Elaine's romantic nature. Now she saw it for what it was, a warning, unheeded. Cameron hadn't loved Elaine. He'd used her. And when she'd outlived her usefulness or discovered his true nature, he'd killed her without hesitation. The rage that thought sparked was cleansing. Maya let it burn through her fear, tempering her resolve. She would see Cameron pay. Not just for Elaine, but for 3 years of her life stolen. For the bonds of pack and family torn away. For every cold night and hungry day and moment of crushing loneliness. She would have justice, or she would die trying. As dusk fell, Maya made her way to a vantage point near the Great Hall, a narrow gap between walls that servants used to move unseen. From here she could hear everything without being detected. The council members arrived in groups, their voices a low rumble. Maya recognized most of them. Marcus, the head warrior, Elena, the pack healer, Richard, the trademaster, all powerful wolves in their own right, all supposedly loyal to Milo, and all potentially in Cameron's pocket. Cameron entered last, his presence commanding attention. Maya watched through the gap as he took his place at Milo's right hand, the perfect picture of a loyal beta. Milo called the meeting to order, his voice carrying the weight of alpha authority. Thank you all for coming on short notice. I have an announcement that concerns the safety and honor of our pack. The room quieted. Maya's heart hammered. 3 years ago, my sister Elaine was murdered by rogues, or so we believed. Milo paused, letting the words sink in. New evidence has come to light suggesting that the rogues were not acting alone, that someone within our own pack may have aided them. The reaction was immediate. Gasps, angry mutters, demands for names. But Maya's eyes were locked on Cameron. She saw the microsecond of panic that flickered across his face before the mask of concern slammed down. My lord, Cameron said, his voice perfectly pitched with shock and grief. What evidence? Who would dare betray us in such a manner? That's what we're going to find out. Milo's gaze swept the room. I'm reopening the investigation. Every witness will be re-interviewed, every piece of evidence re-examined, and this time we won't stop until we find the truth. But the rogues were caught and executed, Elena protested. The case was closed. Cases can be reopened when new information emerges. Milo's tone invited no argument. Unless someone here objects to seeking justice for Elaine? Silence. No one would dare object to that, no matter what they privately thought. Good, Milo continued. Cameron, as Beta, you'll assist in coordinating the investigation. I want full cooperation from all departments. It was a masterstroke. By putting Cameron in charge of investigating himself, Milo forced him into a position where any resistance would look suspicious. The Beta's face remained composed, but Maya saw the white-knuckle grip he had on the table. Of course, my lord, Cameron said smoothly. I'll begin immediately. Though I must ask, what prompted this new investigation? What evidence has emerged after 3 years? That information is classified for now. Milo's expression gave nothing away. But I assure you, it's credible enough to warrant action. The meeting continued, but Maya barely heard the rest. She was watching Cameron's face, seeing the wheels turn behind his eyes. He was calculating, planning, adapting to this new threat, and he was terrified. The meeting adjourned, and the council members filed out in small groups, their conversations hushed and urgent. Cameron approached Milo, his expression earnest. "My lord, if I may speak privately." "Not tonight, Cameron. I have other matters to attend to." It was a dismissal, cold and final. Cameron's jaw clenched, but he bowed and left. Maya watched him go, saw the moment his pleasant mask dropped, and something darker took its place. She followed him. It was risky, leaving her safe vantage point to track Cameron through the castle. But Maya needed to know what he'd do next, who he'd contact. She moved through the servant passages, staying parallel to his route, using every trick she'd learned to remain undetected. Cameron went to his private study and locked the door. Maya positioned herself near a ventilation grate that opened into the room, straining to hear. "Can't be possible," Cameron was saying, and Maya realized he was talking to someone. "She's dead. I made sure—" A pause. "No, there were no survivors from the exile. The wilderness doesn't forgive." Maya's blood ran cold. He was talking about her. "Someone's feeding the alpha lies," Cameron continued, his voice tight with stress. "But who? Who could possibly know?" Another pause, longer this time. "Fine. Tomorrow night. But this had better work. If Milo finds proof, if he even suspects—" The conversation ended abruptly. Maya heard footsteps approaching the door and barely managed to slip away before Cameron emerged. He moved quickly through the castle, heading for the eastern wing where the senior guards had their quarters. Maya couldn't follow further without risking exposure. She retreated to the cellars, her mind racing. Cameron was meeting someone tomorrow night, someone who could help him counter Milo's investigation, someone who knew enough to be dangerous. She had to warn Milo. But when she reached their designated meeting spot, Milo was already there, his expression grim. "Cameron sent a message," he said without preamble. "Coded to someone outside the pack. My spies intercepted it." "What did it say?" "The ghost walks. Eliminate immediately." Milo's eyes burned with wolf light. "He knows you're alive, Maya. He's ordering your execution." The words struck like a physical blow. Maya's mind raced through implications, through options, through the rapidly shrinking window of survival. "Tomorrow night," she said quickly, "he's meeting someone. I heard him through the ventilation grate, someone who can help him fix this problem." "Then we'll be there." Milo's voice was granite hard. "And we'll catch him in the act." "It's a trap. It has to be. Cameron's not stupid. If he suspects I'm alive, he'll use the meeting to draw me out." "Let him try." Milo stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in the narrow corridor. "I won't let him hurt you. Not again." The possessive certainty in his voice made Maya's chest ache. "You can't protect me from everything, Milo. Cameron has resources, allies, 3 years of preparation. We have suspicions and a vial of poison. We have the truth." Milo's hand came up to cup her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. "And we have each other. That has to be enough." Maya wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that justice would prevail, that truth would triumph over lies. But she'd learned harsh lessons in her 3 years below ground. The world didn't reward truth. It rewarded power. And right now Cameron still had more of it than they did. "Promise me something," Maya whispered. "If this goes wrong tomorrow night, if Cameron wins, don't let him take me alive. I won't go back to exile. I won't give him the satisfaction." "Maya, promise me." Her voice broke. "Please." Milo pulled her against his chest, and Maya felt the steady hammer of his heartbeat beneath her cheek. "I promise," he said roughly, "but it won't come to that. We're going to end this, together." They stood there in the darkness, holding each other like drowning victims clutching driftwood. The bond between them sang with bittersweet intensity, joy and terror mixed in equal measure. Tomorrow would bring confrontation. Tomorrow would bring truth or death. But tonight, for just a few stolen moments, they had each other. and Maya prayed it would be enough. Maya woke to the sound of screaming. She bolted upright in her nest of blankets, heart hammering as the sound echoed through the cellar passages. Not a scream of pain. Worse. A scream of terror, abruptly cut short. She was on her feet and moving before conscious thought caught up, her body operating on 3 years of honed survival instinct. The scream had come from the eastern tunnels, near the old wine storage where Thomas sometimes hid when the upper servants got too rough with him. Thomas. Maya ran faster, her bare feet silent on the stone floor. She rounded a corner and nearly collided with a figure stumbling toward her, the boy himself, his face sheet white, blood streaming from a gash on his temple. "Ghost girl," he gasped, clutching at her arm. "They found her, they found—" "Found who? Thomas, what happened?" "The healer's daughter, Mira." Thomas's words tumbled out in panicked fragments. "She was hiding down here too. Said she had evidence against Cameron. Documents. Letters. She was going to give them to the Alpha tonight, but they... A sound behind them made Maya whirl. 3 guards emerged from the darkness, their eyes cold and purposeful. She recognized them, Cameron's men, the ones who'd been searching the cellars yesterday. "Well," the lead guard said, a cruel smile twisting his features, "looks like the rat finally showed herself. Cameron said you'd come if we made enough noise." It was a trap. The scream, Thomas's injury, all of it designed to draw her out. And like a fool, she'd walked straight into it. Maya shoved Thomas behind her. "Run! Get to Milo! Tell him—" The guard moved with inhuman speed, silver blade flashing in the dim light. Maya dodged, felt the blade whisper past her ribs, and countered with a strike to his throat. He gagged and stumbled back, but the other 2 were already closing in. "Go!" Maya shouted at Thomas, and heard the boy's footsteps retreating. Good. At least he'd survived this. She probably wouldn't. The guards spread out, forcing her back against the wall. Maya's mind raced through options. She had no weapons except her claws, no backup, no way to call for help, just her wits and 3 years of desperation-sharpened survival skills. "Cameron wants you alive," the lead guard wheezed, one hand still clutching his throat. "But he didn't say you had to be undamaged, just breathing." They attacked in concert, a coordinated assault that spoke of military training. Maya fought with everything she had, claws raking flesh, teeth snapping for vulnerable throats, her smaller size allowing her to slip between their grasps. But there were 3 of them, and they were fresh while she was half-starved and exhausted. A fist caught her temple, sending stars exploding across her vision. She went down hard, tasted blood, felt rough hands grabbing her arms and yanking them behind her back. Silver cuffs bit into her wrists, burning her skin with their cursed metal. "Got her," one guard said, satisfaction thick in his voice. "Cameron's going to be pleased." "Not as pleased as I'll be to watch what he does to her." The lead guard leaned close, his breath hot on Maya's face. "You cost us 3 years of searching, bitch. 3 years of the beta looking over our shoulders, paranoid about ghosts. Time to pay up." They hauled her to her feet, but before they could move, a howl split the air, long, mournful, and filled with rage. Milo's howl. The Alpha King knew something was wrong. The guards hesitated, exchanging nervous glances. That moment of distraction was all Maya needed. She threw her weight backward, slamming her skull into the nose of the guard holding her. He screamed and loosened his grip just enough for her to twist free. She ran. With her hands bound behind her back and silver burning into her wrists, Maya ran through the darkness with blind desperation. Behind her, she heard the guards giving chase, heard more footsteps joining them. Cameron must have stationed wolves throughout the cellars, waiting for this exact moment. Maya's lungs burned. Her vision blurred. The silver was poisoning her system, making each step heavier than the last. She wouldn't make it to Milo. Wouldn't even make it to the upper levels. So she went down instead. Deeper into the cellars, past the wine storage, past the ancient foundations, into the natural cave system where even Cameron's men wouldn't easily follow. The darkness here was absolute, the passages narrow and treacherous. But Maya knew them by heart, had memorized every twist and turn during her long exile. She could hear her pursuers struggling behind her, their torches casting wild shadows on the cave walls. They were slowing, hesitating, while Maya plunged forward with reckless abandon. A chasm opened before her, a crack in the earth that dropped into unknown depths. Maya skidded to a stop at its edge, her heart sinking. Dead end. She'd miscalculated in her panic, taken a wrong turn somewhere. The guard's torchlight grew brighter. They were close now, too close. Maya looked at the chasm, at the darkness yawning below, and made a choice that would have seemed insane if she'd had time to think about it. She jumped. The fall felt endless. Maya's body tumbled through empty air, her mind screaming that she'd just killed herself, that the landing would shatter every bone. But then she hit water, ice cold and shockingly deep. The impact drove the air from her lungs, and the weight of the silver cuffs dragged her down into lightless depths. Maya kicked frantically, her bound hands making it nearly impossible to swim. Her chest burned for air, her vision darkened at the edges. She was drowning in the belly of the earth, and no one would ever find her body. Then something grabbed her, strong hands seizing her shoulders and hauling her upward. Maya broke the surface, gasping, choking, her savior supporting her weight as they swam toward an unseen shore. They dragged her onto rough stone. Maya lay there coughing water from her lungs, her body shaking with cold and shock. When she could finally focus, she found herself staring into the weathered face of an old woman she didn't recognize. "Foolish child," the woman muttered, working at the silver cuffs with tools produced from somewhere. "Jumping into the black pool with silver on your wrists. You should be dead." "Who?" Maya's voice was a rasp. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows what it's like to hide in the dark." The cuffs fell away, and Maya gasped with relief as the burning stopped. "Someone who's been watching you survive these 3 years with something like admiration." The woman helped Maya sit up, wrapping a rough blanket around her shaking shoulders. In the dim light of the woman's small lantern, Maya could make out their surroundings. A cave chamber carved by ancient water with evidence of long habitation. A bedroll. Stored supplies. Books. "You've been living down here?" Maya asked incredulously. "Longer than you've been alive, girl." The woman's smile was sad. "I'm Vera. Once upon a time, I was the pack healer, until I discovered something I shouldn't have and had to disappear before Cameron could silence me permanently." Maya's breath caught. "You know about Cameron?" "I know he's a murderer and a traitor. I know he killed the Alpha's sister, and I know he's been systematically eliminating anyone who might expose him." Vera's eyes were hard as flint. "I also know you're trying to bring him down, and that boy Thomas has been your only ally. Brave child, but outmatched. How do you know all this?" "Because I've been listening, watching, surviving, same as you." Vera pulled out a leather satchel and began rummaging through it. "And I've been gathering evidence, real evidence, the kind that can't be dismissed or explained away." She produced a stack of documents, letters in Cameron's handwriting, ledgers showing payments to rogues, even a vial identical to the one Maya had stolen. But the most damning item was a small journal, its pages filled with neat script. "Elaine's diary," Vera said quietly. "She gave it to me the day before she died. Said if anything happened to her, I should make sure the truth came out. But when she was murdered and I saw Cameron's hand in it, I knew I couldn't trust anyone in the pack. So I took the diary and disappeared." Maya's hands trembled as she opened the journal. Elaine's familiar handwriting swam before her eyes, made blurry by tears she couldn't stop. Cameron has been asking strange questions lately. About pack succession. About what would happen if Milo were to die without an heir. I told him such thoughts were treasonous, and he laughed it off as intellectual curiosity. But I can't shake the feeling that something darker is brewing. Another entry dated 2 weeks before her death. "I've discovered irregularities in the pack finances. Large sums being diverted to unknown accounts. When I confronted Cameron, he became angry, truly angry, in a way I've never seen before. He said I should focus on my own duties and leave pack business to those qualified to handle it, as if I'm not the Alpha's sister, as if I have no right to question." The final entry made Maya's blood run cold. "Cameron has asked me to meet him tonight in the garden pavilion. Says he has something important to discuss about Milo's safety. I don't trust him anymore, but I have to know what he's planning. I've left this diary with Vera as insurance. If anything happens to me, she'll know what to do." "She knew," Maya whispered. "She knew he was dangerous and met him anyway. Because she was brave and loyal and thought she could handle him." Vera's voice was heavy with old grief. "She was wrong, but her death won't be meaningless if we use this evidence to destroy him." Maya looked up sharply. We? You'll testify? Come forward? I'm an old woman who's been legally dead for 15 years. My testimony alone won't be enough. Vera's expression hardened. But combined with yours, with this diary, with the wolfsbane and financial records, yes. I'll stand before the pack and speak truth. Hope surged in Maya's chest, so fierce it hurt. We have to get this to Milo, tonight. Cameron's planning something. I heard him. He's meeting someone who can help him eliminate the threat. Then we'd better move fast. Vera began gathering her evidence into a waterproof bag. But we can't just walk into the castle. Cameron has guards everywhere, and after your little chase, he'll be on high alert. There's another way. Maya's mind raced through the castle's layout, through the passages she'd mapped over 3 years. The old drainage system, it runs from the caves up to the castle's foundation. Hasn't been used in decades, but it's still accessible. And probably full of rats, cave-ins, and stagnant water. Better than full of Cameron's guards. Maya stood, testing her limbs. The swim had washed the worst of the silver poisoning from her system, and her wolf was already healing the damage. Can you make the climb? Vera snorted. Child, I've been climbing these caves for 15 years. I can handle it. They moved quickly, Maya leading with Vera following close behind. The drainage system was everything Maya had feared. Narrow, treacherous, with stones slick from centuries of moisture. Twice they had to navigate around cave-ins, squeezing through gaps barely wide enough for their bodies. But they made progress, moving steadily upward toward the castle. Maya's mind churned as they climbed. With Vera's evidence and testimony, they had everything needed to condemn Cameron. But something nagged at her, a sense that they were missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Why had Cameron killed Elaine? Simple ambition didn't explain it. He was already beta, already in a position of enormous power. Unless… Vera, Maya said suddenly, what did you discover that made you have to disappear? You said you found something you shouldn't have. The old woman was quiet for a moment. Cameron wasn't working alone. He has allies, powerful ones. Wolves from other packs who wanted to destabilize Milo's rule, weaken his territory so they could move in. A conspiracy. A coup. Vera's voice was grim. Elaine discovered the financial trail. She was going to expose not just Cameron, but the entire network, so they had to silence her and make it look like a random rogue attack. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about one beta's treachery. This was about a coordinated effort to destroy Milo's pack from within. Does Milo know? Maya asked. About the larger conspiracy? I don't know. But if he doesn't, and we walk into that meeting tonight… Vera didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. They emerged from the drainage system into the castle's sub-basement, a forgotten storage area filled with broken furniture and moldering supplies. Maya oriented herself quickly, mapping their route to Milo's private quarters. But before they could move, voices echoed from the corridor beyond, guards on patrol. Maya and Vera pressed themselves against the wall, barely breathing, as 2 wolves passed by their hiding spot. Increase security on all entrances, one guard was saying. The beta wants every exit covered. The exile woman can't be allowed to reach the alpha. Think she's really alive? 3 years is a long time to survive in the wild. Cameron seems to think so, and he's not taking chances. If she shows up tonight, we have orders to kill on sight. The guards moved on, their footsteps fading. Maya felt ice in her veins. Cameron wasn't just hunting her anymore. He was fortifying his position, preparing for war. We need to split up, Vera whispered. I'll create a distraction, draw the guards away. You get to Milo. They'll kill you. They'll try. Vera's smile was wolfish despite her age. But I've survived this long by being harder to kill than I look. Besides, this evidence, she pressed the waterproof bag into Maya's hands, is more important than one old woman's life. Vera, I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. The old woman gripped Maya's shoulders with surprising strength. Elaine died trying to expose the truth. I won't let her sacrifice be meaningless. Now go. And when you bring Cameron down, remember, he's not the head of the snake, just the most visible part. Before Maya could protest further, Vera was gone, slipping into the corridor with the silence of long practice. Moments later, a crash echoed from the opposite end of the castle. followed by shouts of alarm. The distraction worked. Maya heard guards running toward the commotion, their heavy boots pounding against stone. She used the chaos to move quickly through the servants' passages, the evidence bag clutched tight against her chest. Milo's quarters were in the north tower, accessible by a private stairwell. Maya took the steps 2 at a time, her heart hammering with urgency. She had to reach him before Cameron realized where she was headed. Had to. The door at the top of the stairs burst open, and Milo himself stood there, looking like he'd been about to descend. His eyes widened when he saw her. Maya. Thank the... He stopped, taking in her soaked clothing, her wild appearance. What happened? Cameron set a trap. He killed the healer's daughter and used her as bait to draw me out. The words tumbled from Maya's lips as Milo pulled her into his quarters and bolted the door. But I found someone. Another survivor. Someone with evidence that proves everything. She thrust the bag at him, and Milo's expression went from confusion to horror as he examined its contents. The diary seemed to hit him hardest. Maya watched the color drain from his face as he read his sister's final words. She knew, he said, his voice hollow. She knew he was a threat, and I did nothing. I trusted him. I let him. You couldn't have known, Maya interrupted, gripping his arm. Cameron fooled everyone. He's been planning this for years, Milo. It's not just him. There's a network, other packs, a conspiracy to bring you down. Milo's head snapped up, his eyes blazing with wolf light. Who? I don't know all the details, but Vera, the woman who gave me this evidence, she knows more. She's been investigating for 15 years. Where is she now? Maya's throat tightened. She created a distraction so I could reach you. She's somewhere in the castle, probably being hunted by Cameron's guards. Milo moved to the window, looking out over his domain. Maya could see the war raging in his expression, grief for his sister, rage at the betrayal, fear for what this conspiracy meant for his pack. Tonight's meeting, he said finally. Cameron will be there with whoever he's conspiring with. We can use that. Trap them all at once. It's too dangerous. If they suspect, they already suspect. Milo turned to face her, and Maya saw the Alpha King in full force, ruthless, calculating, absolutely lethal. Cameron knows you're alive. He knows we're investigating. He's either going to run or make his move tonight. We need to force his hand. How? A grim smile crossed Milo's face. By giving him exactly what he wants. You. Maya's stomach dropped. You want to use me as bait. I want to draw out the entire conspiracy in one stroke. No more shadows, no more hidden allies. We bring them into the open where I can destroy them all at once. Milo gripped her shoulders, his gaze intense. But it has to be your choice, Maya. I won't force you into danger. Maya thought of Elaine, dead in the garden pavilion, of Vera, risking everything for justice, of Thomas, bleeding and terrified but still trying to help, of 3 years spent hiding in darkness, surviving on scraps and hope. What do you need me to do? She asked. The plan was audacious to the point of madness. Maya would present herself at the council meeting, alive and ready to testify against Cameron. The shock of her appearance would force Cameron's hand. He'd either have to silence her immediately, revealing his guilt, or watch his conspiracy crumble as she exposed the truth. Either way, Milo would have his proof. I'll have loyal guards stationed throughout the hall, Milo explained as they prepared. At the first sign of violence, they'll move in. But Maya, you have to understand, once you walk into that room, there's no backing out. Cameron will try to kill you. His allies will support him. It's going to get bloody. I've been dead for 3 years, Maya said quietly. If I die for real tonight, at least it'll be fighting for something that matters. Milo pulled her into a fierce embrace. You're not going to die. I won't allow it. You can't control everything, Milo. Not even an Alpha King has that power. Then I'll tear the world apart trying. He pressed his forehead to hers, and Maya felt the bond between them surge with desperate intensity. If I lose you now after just finding you, you won't. Maya kissed him, pouring 3 years of longing and fear and hope into the contact. We're going to end this together. The council chamber was already filled when they arrived. Maya stayed hidden in the antechamber, listening as Milo called the meeting to order. She recognized the voices: Marcus, Elena, Richard, and Cameron, smooth and confident as ever. "Thank you all for attending on such short notice," Milo began, "especially given the disturbances in the castle tonight." "My lord, if I may," Cameron interjected. "The disturbances were caused by the exile, the traitor Maya Thorne. She's been living in the cellars, and tonight she killed one of our own before fleeing. I have guards searching for her as we speak." Murmurs of shock rippled through the assembly. Maya's hands clenched into fists. He was already spinning the narrative, already painting her as the villain. "Is that so?" Milo's tone was mild, almost disinterested. "And how do you know it was Maya Thorne? She was exiled 3 years ago. Most assume her dead." "I have witnesses, guards who saw her, even captured her briefly before she escaped." "Convenient." Milo's voice hardened. "Almost as convenient as the rogues who appeared the night Elaine died. Almost as convenient as the evidence that pointed so clearly to Maya's guilt." The temperature in the chamber dropped. Cameron's voice, when it came, was wary. "My lord, I don't understand what you're implying." "Don't you?" Milo stood, and Maya heard the scrape of his chair. "Let me be clear then. I'm implying that perhaps the investigation into Elaine's death was too convenient, too neat, too quick to close." "My lord, the evidence was overwhelming." "Was it? Or was it manufactured by someone who wanted a specific outcome?" Milo's footsteps echoed as he paced. "Someone who had the authority to control the investigation. Someone who benefited from Elaine's death and Maya's exile." "This is outrageous," Cameron's voice rose with indignation. "I served Elaine faithfully. I hunted her killers. I mourned her as we all did. To suggest that I'm not suggesting, Cameron. I'm accusing." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Maya heard gasps, heard chairs scraping as council members shifted nervously. This was it. The moment of truth. "You're accusing me?" Cameron's laugh was bitter. "Based on what? The ravings of an exile? The paranoid suspicions of an alpha consumed by grief? Based on evidence." Milo's voice was steel. "Letters in your handwriting, financial records showing payments to rogues, wolfsbane matching the poison used to kill my sister. And most damning of all, Elaine's own diary, detailing her suspicions about you in the days before her death." Silence. Then chaos erupted, voices raised in shock, in denial, in fury. Maya couldn't see what was happening, but she could hear the pandemonium. "Lies!" Cameron shouted over the din. "All of it fabricated by a desperate woman trying to save her own skin. Where is this evidence? Where is this diary? Show us!" "Gladly." Milo's voice cut through the noise. "Maya, you can come in now." This was it. Maya took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and stepped into the council chamber. The reaction was immediate and visceral. Council members leaped from their seats. Some stared in shock. Others backed away as if she carried plague. But Maya's eyes were locked on Cameron, watching the mask of indignation slip to reveal the monster beneath. For just a moment, she saw pure hatred in his expression, pure, murderous rage. Then the mask slammed back down, and he was the wounded Beta again, shocked by this betrayal. "The exile returns," Cameron said, his voice dripping with disdain. "How fitting. Tell me, Maya, how many did you kill to get this evidence you claim to have? How many innocents did you sacrifice for your revenge?" "The only innocent who died was Elaine." Maya's voice rang clear and strong through the chamber. "You killed her, Cameron. You poisoned her with wolfsbane, strangled her when she was too weak to fight back, and arranged the scene to frame me and the rogues you'd hired." "Prove it." Maya held up the diary. "Her own words prove it. She suspected you. She documented your questions about succession, about the financial irregularities. She knew you were planning something, and she died trying to stop you." She began reading passages aloud, Elaine's elegant script condemning Cameron with every word. Maya watched the council members' expressions shift from skepticism to horror as the truth sank in. Cameron's jaw clenched. "A diary could be forged, handwriting copied. This proves nothing." "Then explain the wolfsbane found in your quarters," Milo interjected. "Explain the letters to rogue packs. Explain the payments from pack funds to your personal accounts." "I can explain all of it." Cameron's smile was sharp as broken glass. "But first, I have a question for our dear Alpha." When did you stop trusting me? When did you decide to believe the word of a convicted traitor over your own beta? When the traitor showed me evidence you couldn't refute, Milo stepped closer to Cameron, and Maya saw the predatory tension in both their bodies. When I realized that 3 years of feeling incomplete, of dreaming about someone I'd never met, was because my true mate was hiding in my own castle, hidden from me by your lies. The revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. Murmurs exploded into outright shouting. True mates were sacred, their bond undeniable proof of compatibility. For an alpha to find his mate alive when she'd been declared traitor, it changed everything. Cameron's expression twisted with something ugly. So that's what this is about. Your cock has decided your policy. How very alpha of you. Watch your tongue, Milo growled, his voice dropping to a register that made several council members bare their throats in submission. Or what? You'll execute me based on the fabricated evidence of your bedmate? Cameron looked around the chamber, playing to the crowd. This is what our pack has come to? The alpha abandons justice for the convenience of his dick? The crude language shocked the assembly, but Maya saw the calculation behind it. Cameron was trying to reduce this to sexual politics, to paint Milo as weak and ruled by lust. It was a smart play. Several council members looked uncertain now, swayed by the argument. The bond doesn't lie, Maya said, stepping forward. True mates are chosen by forces beyond any of us. If I were truly guilty, the bond wouldn't exist. Unless you're not true mates at all, Cameron countered. Unless this is just convenient timing and a desperate alpha looking for any excuse to believe in fairy tales. Then let's test it. Milo's voice was dangerous. Let's see who the bond chooses in a moment of crisis. Maya, go stand by the door. Maya obeyed, confused. Milo remained in the center of the chamber, his eyes locked on Cameron. If we're not true mates, Milo continued, if this is just lust as you claim, then Maya will run when I give her the chance. She'll save herself and leave me to face the consequences of my choices. He raised his voice. Maya, you're free to go. The door is unguarded. Run, and no one will stop you. Every eye in the chamber turned to Maya. She understood what Milo was doing, proving the bond by showing that she wouldn't abandon him, even when given the chance. It was a calculated risk, forcing Cameron's hand while demonstrating their connection to the pack. But it was also genuine. Milo was giving her the choice, one final time, to save herself. Maya looked at the door, at freedom, at the chance to disappear again to avoid the violence that was surely coming. Then she looked at Milo, at the man who'd listened when no one else would, who'd investigated instead of executing, who'd given her hope when she'd had none. I'm not going anywhere, she said firmly, moving back to stand at his side. Whatever happens here tonight, we face it together. The bond surged between them, visible to everyone in the room as a shimmer of energy, a rightness that couldn't be faked or manufactured. Maya saw several council members' expressions soften, saw belief taking root. But Cameron just laughed, a sound without humor, empty of everything except malice. How touching. The exile and the alpha, united in delusion. His hand moved to his belt, fingers brushing the hilt of a silver blade. But I'm afraid this fairy tale ends here. He moved with supernatural speed, the blade leaving its sheath in a silver blur, aimed straight at Maya's heart. But Milo was faster, his body interposing between them, one hand catching Cameron's wrist with crushing force. You just confessed, Milo said softly, in front of the entire council. You just tried to murder my mate. Cameron's eyes widened as he realized his mistake. The rage had made him careless, made him strike before thinking. Now there was no talking his way out. No clever explanations. Now there was only war. Cameron wrenched free and leaped backward, his body already shifting to wolf form. The transformation was brutal and fast, bones cracking and reforming as he became something massive and predatory. He lunged not at Milo, but at the council members blocking the door, scattering them with slashing claws. Milo shifted too, his alpha form larger and more powerful than Cameron's beta. But before he could give chase, the chamber doors burst open and more wolves poured in. Cameron's guards, his loyal followers. The network of conspiracy made flesh. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Council members shifted and fought, choosing sides in an instant. Maya saw Marcus go down under 3 attackers, saw Elena defending herself with tooth and claw. The room became a nightmare of fur and blood and screaming. Maya shifted, letting her wolf form take over. She was smaller than the others, weakened by years of poor nutrition, but she fought with the desperation of someone who had nothing left to lose. Her claws found flesh, her teeth found throats, and she carved a path toward Cameron's fleeing form. He was heading for the secret passage behind the throne, a route only Beta and Alpha knew about. Maya recognized it from her years of exploring, knew it led down to the armory and from there to the outer walls. He was trying to escape. Not this time. Not ever again. Maya put on a burst of speed, her wolf form pushing past its limits. She caught Cameron at the passage entrance, her jaws clamping down on his hind leg. He howled and turned, his larger form bearing her to the ground. They rolled in a tangle of fur and fury, snapping at each other's throats. Then Milo was there, his massive alpha form slamming into Cameron with the force of an avalanche. The two males fought with savage intensity, and Maya scrambled clear to avoid being crushed. She watched in horror as Cameron's claws raked across Milo's shoulder, drawing blood. The fight was brutal and swift. Milo had alpha strength, but Cameron fought like a cornered rat, vicious and without honor. He went for the eyes, the throat, the vulnerable places that could end a fight in seconds. But Milo had rage on his side. 3 years of mourning his sister. 3 years of being deceived. 3 years of feeling incomplete, of searching for a mate kept from him by lies. He caught Cameron by the throat and squeezed. Cameron thrashed, his claws scrabbling uselessly against Milo's grip, but the Alpha King didn't release, didn't show mercy. He held on as Cameron's struggles weakened, as the light began to fade from the traitor's eyes. "Wait!" The voice came from the doorway, harsh and commanding. Maya turned to see a stranger standing there, flanked by armed wolves bearing the insignia of a neighboring pack. Alpha Darius, leader of the Silverpine Wolves, and based on the way Cameron's remaining guards bowed their heads, one of the conspiracy's leaders. "Release my Beta," Darius commanded, "or this ends in a war that will destroy both our packs." Milo's grip tightened, and Cameron made a choking sound. "Your Beta?" Milo's voice was distorted by his wolf form, but still understandable. "You claim him? Claim a traitor and murderer?" "I claim an ally who is working to save the region from your weak rule." Darius smiled coldly. "Elaine had to die. She discovered our plans to unite the packs under stronger leadership, under my leadership. And you, Milo, will step down peacefully, or your people will suffer for your pride." The threat hung in the air. Maya looked around the chamber, at the wounded council members, at Milo's guards fighting against superior numbers, at the blood-staining ancient stone. They were outnumbered, outmaneuvered. Darius had brought an army to Milo's doorstep, hidden among the supposed peace delegation that had arrived earlier today, and now he was demanding surrender. Milo's eyes met Maya's across the chamber. She saw the question there, saw him weighing options, calculating costs. If he refused, people would die. His pack would be torn apart in civil war. But if he surrendered, Cameron would go free. Elaine's murderer would walk away unpunished. Maya made the choice for him. She shifted back to human form, standing naked and defiant before the assembled wolves. "You want proof of Cameron's guilt?" she shouted, her voice carrying through the chamber. "Then look into my eyes and see the truth. See what he did." She'd never tried this before, never reached for the power that sometimes stirred in her wolf, the gift her grandmother had claimed ran in their bloodline, the gift of showing truth, of projecting memory into the minds of others. But desperation bred miracles. Maya focused on that terrible night 3 years ago, on every detail seared into her memory. She felt power surge through her veins, felt it radiate outward like ripples in water. And suddenly, everyone in the chamber was there with her, in the garden pavilion, watching through her eyes as Cameron wrapped his hands around Elaine's throat, as the princess struggled and died, as he arranged the bodies and prepared his lies. The vision was so vivid, so undeniable, that several wolves cried out. Maya held it as long as she could, showing them everything. The murder, the frame job, Cameron's cold satisfaction as Maya was condemned and exiled. When the vision finally faded, Maya collapsed, every ounce of strength drained. But it had worked. She could see it in the faces around her. Horror, disgust, and most importantly, belief. "Witch," Darius spat. "She's showing you fabrications, lies woven with dark magic. But his own wolves were backing away from him, their expressions uncertain. They'd seen the truth, felt it in their bones, and they were questioning their alpha's alliance with a murderer. Milo seized the moment. His jaws opened and Cameron's throat tore open in a spray of blood. The beta died without ceremony, his body falling limp in the Alpha King's grip. "Now," Milo said, shifting back to human form and facing Darius with blood on his hands. "Get out of my territory and take your army with you. The next time you set foot in my lands without invitation, I'll consider it an act of war." Darius's face twisted with rage. "You've just signed your pack's death warrant, Milo. You think killing one beta changes anything? The conspiracy runs deeper than you know. We'll be back, and next time you won't see us coming." "I look forward to it." Milo's smile was all teeth. "Now leave, before I decide that anyone who conspired with Cameron shares his fate." The standoff stretched for an eternity. Then Darius jerked his head toward his wolves, and they retreated, dragging their wounded with them. The threat wasn't over. Maya could see it in the Alpha's eyes as he left. But for tonight, they'd won. The chamber emptied slowly, leaving only Milo, Maya, and the loyal council members who'd survived the fight. Marcus was being tended by Elena, his shoulder a mess of claw marks. Richard was dead, his throat torn out in the chaos. Milo knelt beside Maya, gathering her exhausted form into his arms. "What you did, that power—" "My grandmother's gift," Maya whispered, too tired to explain properly. "Truth showing, I never thought it would work, but I had to try. You saved us all." Milo pressed his forehead to hers, gave us proof that couldn't be denied. "Is it over?" Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. "No?" Milo's expression was grim. Darius was telling the truth about the conspiracy running deep. "We've cut off one head, but the serpent lives. It'll come back. Then we'll be ready." Milo helped her to her feet, wrapping her in a cloak someone handed him. Around them, the pack was gathering, those who'd fought for them, those who'd believed when belief seemed insane. And for the first time in 3 years, Maya wasn't hiding. She was standing in the light, blood-splattered and exhausted, but free. The pack's healer worked through the night, stitching wounds and setting broken bones while the castle slowly transformed from battlefield to sanctuary. Maya sat in Milo's chambers, wrapped in soft blankets that felt impossibly luxurious after 3 years of rough stone and stolen rags. Her body ached with exhaustion, but her mind refused to quiet. Cameron was dead. The immediate threat was gone. But Darius's parting words echoed in her thoughts like a curse. "The conspiracy runs deeper than you know." "You should rest," Milo said, entering with 2 cups of tea. He'd cleaned the blood from his skin but still moved with the stiffness of recent combat. "Elena said you pushed your gift beyond safe limits. You need to recover." Maya accepted the tea, feeling its warmth seep into her chilled fingers. "I can't rest. Not when we know there are more of them out there. More traitors. More conspirators planning our destruction." Milo sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. The bond hummed between them, soothing and electric all at once. "We'll find them. Hunt them down one by one if we have to. But tonight, we breathe. We survived." "Did we?" Maya gestured toward the window, where dawn was breaking over a castle still stained with blood. "Richard is dead. Marcus is maimed. And how many guards died fighting Cameron's people? How many families will wake to loss because we weren't prepared?" "That guilt is mine to carry, not yours." Milo's voice was heavy. "I'm the one who trusted Cameron. I'm the one who let a viper nest in my own house. He fooled everyone, even Elaine, and she was suspicious of him." Maya turned to face him fully. "You can't blame yourself for being loyal to someone you thought deserved it." "Can I?" Milo's laugh was bitter. "I'm an Alpha King, reading people, sensing deception. That's supposed to be instinctive. But I was so busy maintaining power, expanding territory, proving I deserved my father's throne, that I never looked at what was rotting from within." He met her gaze. "If you hadn't survived, if you hadn't been stubborn enough to hide in my cellars for 3 years, I would never have known. Cameron would have eventually made his move, and I would have died confused and betrayed." Maya set down her tea and took his hands in hers. "Then let's make sure Elaine's death and my exile weren't meaningless. Let's root out the rest of the conspiracy and build something stronger, something they can't tear down." "How?" We don't even know who we can trust anymore. Any of the pack could be working with Darius. Then we find out. Maya's mind was already working through possibilities. My gift showed them the truth about Cameron. What if we used it to test loyalty, show people visions, watch their reactions? Anyone working with the conspiracy will reveal themselves through guilt or fear. Milo shook his head. Elena said using your gift once nearly killed you. Testing the entire pack would be worth it if it saves lives. Maya squeezed his hands. I'm stronger than I look, Milo. 3 years in the dark taught me that. I can handle this. No. His tone was final. I won't risk you like that. We'll find another way. Before Maya could argue, a knock sounded at the door. Milo called permission to enter and Marcus limped in, his shoulder heavily bandaged but his eyes sharp with purpose. My lord, my lady, he said, bowing awkwardly. Forgive the intrusion, but there's something you need to see. We found Vera. Maya's heart leaped. She's alive? Barely. Cameron's guards beat her badly before we drove them off. But she's conscious and insisting on speaking with you both. Marcus's expression was grim. She says she knows where the conspiracy is meeting next. Says they're planning to strike within the week. They found Vera in the healer's wing, her weathered face bruised and swollen, but her eyes fierce as ever. Elena hovered nearby, applying salves to the worst of the injuries. Took you long enough, Vera rasped when Maya and Milo entered. I've been awake for an hour listening to the healer fuss. You're lucky to be awake at all, Elena retorted. 3 broken ribs, a fractured skull, and internal bleeding. You should be dead. I'm too stubborn for death. Ask anyone who knew me before I disappeared. Vera's gaze fixed on Milo. So you're the Alpha King. You look like your father. He was a good man. Trusted too easily, like you. Milo's jaw tightened, but he nodded respectfully. Marcus says you have information about the conspiracy. More than information. I know their plans. Vera struggled to sit up, waving away Elena's protests. I've been watching Cameron for 15 years. You think I only gathered evidence about Elaine's murder? I've been mapping the entire network, every conspirator, every ally, every plan they've made. She reached under her pillow and withdrew a small leather journal, its pages worn from constant handling. It's all here, names, dates, meeting locations. Darius isn't the mastermind, he's just the muscle. The real leader is Alpha Mordecai of the Northern Ridge Pack. He's been orchestrating this for decades, slowly placing his people in key positions across all the surrounding territories. Milo took the journal, flipping through pages filled with cramped handwriting and detailed diagrams. Maya looked over his shoulder, her stomach sinking as she recognized name after name. Wolves she'd known, wolves she'd trusted, all secretly working to undermine Milo's rule. This is extensive, Milo said quietly. If even half of this is accurate, it's all accurate, Vera interrupted. I've been nothing but accurate for 15 years. That's why I'm still alive when so many others are dead. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Maya asked. If you knew all this, why hide? Because coming forward meant trusting someone, and everyone I might have trusted was either dead or potentially compromised. Vera's expression was haunted. After Elaine died and I saw how easily Cameron manipulated the investigation, I realized the corruption went higher than I'd thought. So I went deeper instead of up, gathered proof instead of making accusations no one would believe. And now? Milo's voice was careful. Why reveal yourself now? Because Cameron's death changes everything. The conspiracy will have to adapt, reorganize. They'll be vulnerable for a brief window while they scramble to fill the power vacuum. Vera's smile was sharp despite her injuries. And because I'm old and tired, and I'd like to see justice done before I die. Milo studied the journal for a long moment, then looked at Maya. This gives us targets, real, concrete targets. But if we move too quickly, we might miss some of the conspirators. Let them slip away and regroup. So we don't move quickly, Maya said, an idea forming. We move strategically, pick them off one by one, quietly. Make them think they're still safe while we dismantle their network from within. Like you did to me for 3 years, Milo said with a hint of dark humor. Living in the shadows, learning secrets, surviving on patience and cunning. Exactly like that. Maya felt energy returning to her exhausted body, purpose driving out fatigue. I know how to be invisible, how to gather information without being detected. Let me do what I do best." "Absolutely not." Milo's tone was sharp. "You're not going back into hiding. You're not risking yourself like that again." "Then what's your plan?" Maya challenged. "Send soldiers? The conspirators will see them coming. Use your authority? They'll lawyer up, claim innocence, hide behind pack law. This requires subtlety, not strength." "She's right," Vera interjected. "You can't fight this with traditional methods. The conspiracy has spent decades preparing for every conventional response. But a ghost in the shadows? Someone they think is dead or powerless?" The old woman's smile widened. "That they won't see coming." Milo's hands clenched into fists, his alpha instincts warring with logic. Maya could feel the bond between them straining. He wanted to protect her, wanted to keep her safe after nearly losing her. But safety wasn't an option when enemies surrounded them. "I won't lose you," Milo said finally. "Not after just finding you. If you're going into danger, I'm going with you." "An Alpha King sneaking through shadows?" Maya shook her head. "You're too recognizable, too powerful. Everyone can sense your presence. But me? I'm just a broken exile. Someone who should be grateful to be alive, who'll stay quiet and invisible while the important wolves handle things." "Let them think that," Vera added. "Let the pack see Maya as the rescued mate, traumatized and recovering. Meanwhile, she does what she does best, survives in places others won't look." The plan took shape over the next hour. Vera's journal revealed that the conspiracy was planning a meeting in 3 days at a neutral location, an abandoned mill on the border between territories. Mordecai himself would be attending to reorganize after Cameron's death and plan their next move against Milo. It was the perfect opportunity to strike, but they needed intelligence first: numbers, defenses, exact timing, information that couldn't be gathered through official channels without alerting the conspirators, information that required a ghost. "I'll need help," Maya said as they finalized the details. "Someone who knows the territory around the mill, someone I can trust." "Thomas," Milo said immediately. "The kitchen boy who helped you survive. He's proven his loyalty, and he's small enough to go unnoticed." Maya nodded. "And Vera, if she's strong enough, her knowledge of the conspiracy will be invaluable." "I'm strong enough," Vera insisted, though Elena made a disapproving sound. "I've survived worse than a beating. I'll manage." The next day, the pack gathered for a public ceremony. Milo had called the assembly to address the previous night's violence and to formally recognize Maya's place in the pack. She stood beside him on the great hall's dais, wearing borrowed clothes that hung loose on her malnourished frame, her hair freshly washed but still showing 3 years of neglect. She looked exactly like what the pack expected, a broken woman saved by her alpha, grateful and harmless. Perfect camouflage. "Last night we faced betrayal from within," Milo addressed the assembly, his voice carrying the weight of alpha authority. "Beta Cameron proved to be a traitor who murdered my sister and framed an innocent woman. He nearly succeeded in destroying us from within." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some of agreement, others of doubt. Maya could feel the skepticism, could see it in certain faces. Not everyone believed the official story. Not everyone accepted her innocence. Good. Let them doubt. Let them think she was weak and uncertain. "But we survived," Milo continued, "thanks to the courage of Maya Thorne, who spent 3 years hiding in our own cellars, surviving against impossible odds, gathering evidence while the rest of us were blind to the threat." He turned to Maya, and the bond between them surged with genuine emotion. "She is my true mate, chosen by forces beyond any of us, and today I formally recognize her as such before the pack." The ceremony was brief but binding. Milo drew his claws across his palm, then Maya's, and they pressed the bleeding wounds together while the pack watched. The bond flared bright enough that several wolves gasped, its authenticity undeniable. When they separated, Milo raised their joined hands. "Let any who doubt this bond step forward now and speak. Let any who question Maya's innocence present evidence. Or let them accept the truth and move forward in unity." Silence. No one stepped forward. But Maya saw the calculation in certain eyes, saw wolves exchanging glances that spoke of doubt and conspiracy. She memorized their faces. After the ceremony, wolves approached to offer congratulations or condolences. their words flowing over Maya in a meaningless stream. She played her part perfectly, shy, overwhelmed, clinging to Milo's arm like a woman who'd forgotten how to stand alone. But her eyes were sharp, cataloging everything, who approached with genuine warmth, who kept their distance, who watched her with calculation rather than curiosity. One wolf in particular caught her attention, a senior guard named Helena who'd served under Cameron. She offered congratulations with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and when she gripped Maya's hand in greeting, her claws extended just enough to draw blood. A warning, or a threat. Maya filed it away for later. That night she prepared for the real work. Thomas met her in the cellars, her old territory that now felt both familiar and foreign. The boy's eyes were bright with nervous energy. "I've never been on a real mission before," he said, checking the supplies Maya had assembled. "Are you sure I can do this?" "You survived 3 years under Cameron's nose while helping me stay hidden," Maya replied. "You're braver than most warriors I've known. Just do what comes naturally. Watch, listen, and tell me everything you see." They left the castle through the drainage system Maya had used to reach Milo, emerging in the forest as the moon rose. Vera was waiting at the rendezvous point, moving stiffly, but with determination. "The mill is 2 hours north," the old woman said, consulting a hand-drawn map. "There's a hunting cabin nearby where we can observe without being detected. If we move quickly, we'll be in position before dawn." They traveled in silence, Maya's wolf senses alert for any followers. But the forest was quiet except for natural sounds. No guards, no pursuers. Either Milo's deception had worked, or the conspirators were confident enough to not bother watching a supposedly broken exile. The cabin was exactly where Vera had indicated, a small structure tucked into a hillside with a perfect view of the valley below and the abandoned mill. They settled in to wait and watch. Over the next 2 days, Maya learned patience on a new level. Watching wasn't like hiding. It required absolute focus without action, hours of stillness while cataloging every detail. Thomas proved invaluable, his young eyes spotting movement Maya might have missed, his servants' training making him notice patterns in seemingly random activity. They saw the conspirators arrive in small groups, disguised as merchants or travelers. Maya recognized several from Vera's journal, wolves from different packs, all converging on the mill with careful nonchalance. 32 so far, Thomas whispered on the second night, marking his rough count. And that's just the ones we can see. Could be more inside already. Too many for a direct assault, Maya murmured. Even with Milo's full guard, we'd be outnumbered. Then we don't assault, Vera said. We gather information and strike smart. Let them think they're safe while we learn their plans. As darkness fell on the third day, activity at the mill increased. Maya watched as a large carriage arrived, flanked by guards bearing the Northern Ridge insignia. When the door opened, an elderly wolf emerged, silver-haired and distinguished, moving with the confidence of someone who'd never known defeat. Alpha Mordecai, the conspiracy's true leader. Maya's hands clenched. This was the wolf who'd orchestrated Elaine's death, who'd corrupted Cameron, who'd spent decades working to destroy Milo's pack. And he was right there, close enough that Maya could make out his features in the moonlight. "Easy," Vera whispered, sensing Maya's tension. "Remember the plan. Intelligence first." The meeting began after nightfall. Through the mill's broken windows, Maya could see the assembled conspirators gathering in the main room. She crept closer, using shadows and her gift for silence to position herself near enough to hear. Mordecai's voice carried clearly through the night air. "Cameron's death is unfortunate but not catastrophic. He served his purpose, weakening Milo's trust, eliminating the sister who might have exposed us. Now we adapt." "Adapt how?" That was Darius's voice, rough with barely controlled anger. "Milo knows about the conspiracy. He's killed one of our best assets. We've lost our foothold in Blackthorn Castle." "Have we?" Mordecai's tone was amused. "Or have we simply shifted strategies? Milo thinks Cameron was the threat. Let him celebrate his victory while we regroup and strike from a direction he's not watching." "What direction?" Another voice Maya didn't recognize. "His mate." Mordecai let the words hang in the air. "The exile who supposedly exposed Cameron. The woman Milo has bound himself to publicly. If she were to disappoint him." Betray him. Prove to be the traitor Cameron claimed all along. Maya's blood ran cold. You want to frame her again? Darius sounded skeptical. Milo won't fall for that twice. He will if the evidence is irrefutable. If she's caught in an act of sabotage or treason that can't be explained away. Mordecai's smile was audible in his voice. We've already planted our people in the castle. Helena, for instance. She has access to Maya's chambers, to her belongings. It would be simple to manufacture evidence. Letters to enemy packs. Stolen documents. Perhaps even poison that matches what killed Elaine. Frame her for the same crime twice? Another conspirator laughed. That's bold. That's psychology. Mordecai's tone turned serious. Milo has invested everything in believing Maya's innocence. His mate bond, his public declaration, his execution of Cameron. If we prove he was wrong, if we show that Cameron was right all along and Milo killed a loyal beta for a lying exile, it will destroy him. The pack will lose faith, his authority will crumble, and we'll be there to pick up the pieces. Maya barely breathed as the plan unfolded. They were going to frame her again, more elaborately this time. And they were right. If they succeeded, if Milo was forced to choose between the mate bond and undeniable evidence of betrayal, it would tear him apart. When do we move? Darius asked. Tomorrow night. There's a pack feast to celebrate Cameron's defeat and Milo's mate recognition. Everyone will be distracted, drunk on victory. The perfect time to plan our evidence and set events in motion. Mordecai's voice hardened. And this time there will be no last-minute rescues. No convenient visions or diary revelations. We control the narrative completely. The meeting continued, but Maya had heard enough. She crept back to the cabin where Thomas and Vera waited anxiously. They're going to frame me again, Maya said without preamble. Tomorrow night during the feast. They have someone inside the castle, Helena, who will plant evidence in my chambers. Then we stop her, Thomas said immediately. Catch her in the act. No. Maya's mind was racing, seeing possibilities. We let her plant the evidence, but we make sure Milo knows it's coming. We turn their trap into our trap. Vera's eyes gleamed with understanding. Use their own plan against them. Let them think they're succeeding while we gather proof of the conspiracy's existence. Exactly. Maya felt fierce satisfaction building. They want to frame me publicly? Let them try. And when they do, we'll have witnesses, documentation, proof that can't be denied or explained away. They worked through the details as they traveled back to the castle, arriving just before dawn. Milo was waiting in his chambers, his expression tight with worry that eased when Maya entered. You're safe, he breathed, pulling her into an embrace. I've been imagining every possible disaster. The only disaster is the one they're planning. Maya filled him in on everything she'd learned, watching his expression shift from relief to cold fury. Helena, he growled. She's been in my guard for 5 years. I trusted her. Which is why she's perfect for their purposes. Maya gripped his hands. But we can use this. Let her plant the evidence. Have your most loyal guards watching my chambers. When she makes her move, we catch her red-handed and force her to testify against the conspiracy. It's risky. If something goes wrong, something already went wrong 3 years ago when I was exiled based on lies, Maya interrupted. This time, we control the narrative. This time, we're ready. Milo studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right. We do it your way. But I want backup plans for the backup plans. Nothing is left to chance. They spent the day preparing. Milo positioned his most trusted guards in concealed locations around Maya's chambers. Vera briefed them on what to expect. Thomas volunteered to hide in the servant passages, ready to run for help if needed. Maya herself prepared differently. She meditated, conserving her strength, feeling the edges of her truth-showing gift. She'd need it tonight, not to show the past, but to reveal the present. To expose Helena's betrayal in a way the entire pack could witness. As evening approached and the pack gathered for the feast, Maya dressed in borrowed finery that made her look every inch the alpha's mate. Her hair was styled, her face painted, her body adorned with jewels that felt foreign after 3 years of darkness. She looked like someone who belonged in the light, but she moved like a ghost. The feast was elaborate, tables groaning with food, wine flowing freely, wolves celebrating their survival and their alpha's victory. Maya sat at Milo's side, playing her part perfectly. The grateful mate, the rescued victim, the woman who owed everything to her alpha's mercy. She caught Helena's eye across the hall and saw the calculation there, saw the moment the guard decided the time was right. "I need some air," Maya said to Milo, loud enough for nearby wolves to hear. "The crowd is overwhelming." He squeezed her hand in understanding, real understanding, because they'd planned this moment. "Take your time. I'll be here when you return." Maya left the hall, moving through corridors she knew were being watched. She entered her chambers and began the waiting game, knowing Helena would move soon. The guard would wait until she was certain Maya had settled in, certain the coast was clear. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then Maya heard it, the soft sound of her door opening, the barely audible footsteps of someone moving with predatory stealth. Helena entered, her eyes scanning the apparently empty room. Maya was concealed behind a wardrobe, watching through a crack as the guard moved to the writing desk and began planting documents. Letters in Maya's handwriting, forged but expertly done. Correspondence with enemy packs, plans for sabotage. Helena worked quickly, efficiently, the product of military training. But she was so focused on her task that she never noticed the guards moving into position in the corridor outside, never sensed the trap closing around her. "Looking for something?" Maya stepped out from behind the wardrobe, and Helena whirled with a gasp. "My lady, I was just—" "Planting evidence," Maya finished. "On behalf of Alpha Mordecai and the conspiracy, don't bother denying it. We know everything." Helena's expression shifted from surprise to calculation to cold resignation. "You know nothing. Those letters are yours. I'm simply discovering them to report to the Alpha." "Are you?" Maya reached for her gift, feeling it stir within her. "Then you won't mind if I show everyone the truth." The power surged stronger this time, more controlled than in the council chamber. Maya projected not a memory, but present reality, showing every wolf within range exactly what Helena was doing, letting them see through Maya's eyes as the guard planted forged documents. Helena realized what was happening and lunged for Maya, a knife appearing in her hand. But Milo's guards burst through the door, seizing her before the blade could strike. "Let go of me!" Helena snarled, struggling against their grip. "This is a setup. The exile is working with enemies of the pack." "The only enemy here is you," Milo said, entering the chamber with Marcus and several council members. "We've been watching, waiting, and now we have all the proof we need of your betrayal." Helena's struggles stopped. She looked at the assembled wolves, at the damning documents still clutched in her hand, and her shoulders slumped in defeat. "Mordecai will destroy you for this," she said quietly. "You think you've won because you caught one conspirator? We're everywhere. In every pack, every territory. You can't stop what's coming." "Maybe not." Milo's voice was steel. "But we can start by stopping you. Guards, take her to the cells, full isolation, no visitors except myself and Maya." As they dragged Helena away, the pack erupted in chaos. Questions, accusations, demands for answers. But Maya stood at Milo's side, feeling strength returning to her exhausted body. They'd turned the conspiracy's trap back on itself. They'd exposed another traitor, and they'd proven, to the pack and to themselves, that they could fight smart instead of just strong. "It's not over," Maya said quietly, as the tumult swelled around them. "No," Milo agreed, his hand finding hers. "But we're winning. One move at a time. We're taking back what they tried to steal." The feast transformed into an emergency council session as wolves who'd witnessed Maya's truth-showing demanded explanations. Milo addressed them with calm authority, explaining the conspiracy, showing them Vera's journal, presenting Helena's confession under interrogation. Some believed immediately. Others remained skeptical. But Maya could see the shift happening. Wolves who'd dismissed her as a convenient mate were starting to see her as something more. As a weapon Milo could wield against his enemies. As someone worth respecting. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was a beginning. As dawn broke over the castle once more, Maya found herself in the highest tower, looking out over Milo's territory. The bond between them hummed with exhausted satisfaction, and when he joined her, they stood in comfortable silence. "Tomorrow, we plan our next move," Milo said finally. "Use what Helena knows to target the next conspirator. and the next, until we've rooted out every last traitor. It'll take time, Maya warned. Mordecai has been building this network for decades. Then we have decades to dismantle it. Milo pulled her close, and Maya leaned into his strength. But we're not doing it alone anymore. You proved that tonight. The pack is starting to see what I've seen all along, that you're not just a survivor, you're a fighter. Maya thought about the cellar-dwelling ghost she'd been just days ago, about the broken exile who'd hidden in darkness, surviving on scraps and stubbornness. That Maya was gone. In her place stood someone harder, someone who'd learned that survival wasn't enough. Sometimes you had to fight back, and she was just getting started. The words echoed through Maya's mind as she stood in the war room 3 days later, surrounded by maps and intelligence reports. Helena had broken under interrogation, providing names and locations faster than Vera could catalog them. The conspiracy was vast. 23 wolves embedded in Milo's pack alone, with dozens more scattered across allied territories. But knowledge was power, and for the first time in years, Maya held power instead of hiding from it. Marcus reports suspicious activity near the eastern border, Milo said, marking the location on their master map. 3 wolves from the list were seen meeting with merchants from the Silver Pine territory. Darius's people, Vera murmured, cross-referencing her notes. They're trying to establish new supply lines since we cut off their access through the castle. They'll need weapons, silver, wolfsbane, all the tools of betrayal. Maya studied the map, her mind cataloging patterns. They're getting desperate, making mistakes, meeting in places we can observe. Then we observe. Milo's expression was grim satisfaction. Thomas, I want you coordinating with the kitchen staff. See if any of the suspected conspirators are ordering unusual supplies or having private meetings. Maya, I'll go to the border, Maya interrupted. Watch the meeting myself. We need someone who can get close without being detected. The room went silent. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, and even Vera looked concerned, but Milo's expression was unreadable. We've discussed this, he said carefully. You're not going back into the field. It's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous right now. Maya met his gaze steadily. But I'm the one they underestimate. The broken exile who got lucky. They won't see me as a threat until it's too late. She's right, Vera said reluctantly. Maya's greatest weapon is that the conspiracy still thinks she's weak. Let them keep thinking it while she gathers intelligence they'll never see coming. Milo's jaw clenched, the alpha in him warring with the mate who wanted to protect. Maya felt the bond strain between them, his need to keep her safe clashing against her need to contribute, to fight. If you go, he said finally, you take guards, ones we absolutely trust. Guards will be noticed. I need to move alone. Then I'm coming with you. Maya shook her head. An alpha king can't disappear for days without raising suspicion. But his mate recovering from trauma? Everyone expects me to be quiet and withdrawn. If I slip away for reconnaissance, they'll assume I'm hiding again. She softened her voice. Trust me, Milo, I know how to survive in hostile territory. It's what I do best. The look he gave her was equal parts pride and terror. When did you become so brave? I've always been brave. Maya's smile was sad. I just had to learn the difference between hiding and strategizing. She left that night, dressed in traveling clothes that made her look like any common wolf on the road. No jewelry, no marks of status, just another exile trying to make her way in a harsh world. The disguise was so complete that the gate guards almost didn't recognize her until she showed the seal Milo had given her. The eastern border was 2 days' travel through dense forest and rocky terrain. Maya moved with the silence she'd perfected in 3 years of cellar dwelling, her senses alert for followers or traps. But the forest was quiet, except for natural sounds, and she reached the designated observation point without incident. The meeting was scheduled for dawn in a clearing near an old hunting lodge. Maya positioned herself in a tree overlooking the site, her wolf's vision picking out details even in the pre-dawn darkness. She didn't have to wait long. The conspirators arrived separately, 3 wolves from Blackthorn Castle and 4 from Silverpine territory. Maya recognized 2 of the Blackthorn wolves from Helena's list, Stephen, a junior counselor, and Rebecca, who worked in the castle archives. But it was the 3rd wolf who made Maya's breath catch, Elena, the pack healer who'd tended Maya's wounds, who'd seemed so genuinely kind. The betrayal stung more than Maya expected. She'd begun to trust Elena, had thought the healer's care was genuine. But here she was, meeting with enemy wolves in secret, her face hard with determination rather than soft with compassion. The Alpha grows paranoid, Elena was saying as Maya strained to hear. He's investigating everyone, questioning loyalties that have stood for years. Helena's capture has made him suspicious of his entire guard. Good, said one of the Silverpine wolves, a scarred male Maya didn't recognize. Paranoia breeds mistakes. When does Mordecai want us to move? Soon, but we need to be patient. Elena pulled out a small vial, and Maya's enhanced vision caught the familiar shimmer of wolfsbane. I've been adding trace amounts to the Alpha's food. Not enough to harm him yet, but enough to weaken him slowly. By the time we're ready to strike, he'll be compromised. Maya's hands clenched on the branch she was perched on. They were poisoning Milo, right under everyone's noses, using the healer's trusted position to slowly assassinate the Alpha King. What about the mate? Rebecca asked nervously. Her truth-showing gift is dangerous. If she reveals us the way she did Helena, she won't get the chance. Elena's smile was cold. I've been treating her too, telling her the fatigue she feels is normal after using her gifts so extensively, but really, I'm suppressing it, mixing sedatives into her medicine. By the time she realizes something's wrong, it'll be too late. Rage flooded through Maya, so intense that her wolf threatened to break free. She'd been feeling exhausted for days, had attributed it to stress and recovery. But Elena had been drugging her, stealing her strength, preparing her for slaughter. The healer was still talking. Mordecai wants them both alive for the final confrontation. He wants the pack to see their alpha and his mate captured and humiliated before executing them publicly. It'll break their spirit, make the transition of power easier. When? Stephen asked. The Autumn Festival, 3 weeks from now. The whole pack will be gathered, distracted by celebration. Mordecai's forces will move in from all sides, and our people inside the castle will open the gates. By sunrise, it'll be over. 3 weeks. Maya committed every detail to memory, her mind racing through implications. This wasn't just about rooting out conspirators anymore. This was about preventing a full-scale invasion, a coup designed to destroy everything Milo had built. The meeting continued for another hour, the conspirators coordinating timing and resources. Maya cataloged it all: names, numbers, strategies. When they finally dispersed, she waited until full daylight before climbing down from her perch. She had to get back to the castle, had to warn Milo, had to... A sound behind her made Maya whirl. Elena stood there, her healer's bag in hand, her expression regretful. I'm sorry you heard that, Elena said quietly. You should have stayed in the castle where you belonged. You've been poisoning us. Maya's voice shook with fury. I trusted you. Milo trusted you. And that trust made my job easier. Elena pulled a syringe from her bag, the liquid inside shimmering with concentrated wolfsbane. This was never personal, Maya. You just had the misfortune of being Milo's mate. If you'd been anyone else, I might have let you live. She moved with the speed of a trained healer accustomed to administering medicine to struggling patients. But Maya had spent 3 years dodging guards and surviving impossible odds. She twisted away from the needle, her claws extending as she shifted partially into wolf form. They fought in brutal silence, neither wanting to alert the other conspirators. Elena was skilled and strong, her healer's knowledge of anatomy making her strikes devastatingly accurate. But Maya fought with the desperation of someone who'd already lost everything once and refused to lose it again. The syringe shattered against a tree trunk. Elena cursed and drew a silver blade, slashing at Maya's face. The blade caught her cheek, drawing blood and burning pain, but Maya ignored it. She'd endured worse in the cellars. You can't win, Elena panted, circling. Even if you kill me, there are dozens more. The conspiracy will continue. Milo will fall. Maybe. Maya's voice was steady despite her racing heart. But I'll die making sure he knows who his enemies are. That's more than Cameron gave Elaine. Elena's expression flickered with something that might have been guilt. Elaine was kind to me too, but kindness doesn't change reality. Milo's rule is weak. The packs need stronger leadership, and Mordecai will provide it. By murdering and lying and poisoning innocents? By doing what's necessary. Elena lunged again, and this time Maya was ready. She dropped low, catching the healer's wrist and twisting with all her strength. Bone cracked, and Elena screamed. The sound echoed through the forest, and Maya knew she had seconds before the other conspirators returned to investigate. She ran, putting distance between herself and Elena's cries, her mind focused on one goal: survive and warn Milo. She made it back to the castle in record time, pushing her exhausted body past its limits. The guards at the gate nearly didn't recognize her, face bloody, clothes torn, eyes wild with urgency. But they knew Milo's seal and let her pass. Maya burst into the war room where Milo was meeting with Marcus and Vera. He took one look at her and was at her side instantly, his hands gentle on her face as he examined her wounds. What happened? His voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded storms. Elena, Maya's words tumbled out in urgent fragments. She's one of them. Been poisoning us both. They're planning an invasion during the autumn festival. 3 weeks. Mordecai's bringing his full forces. The room erupted into organized chaos. Marcus immediately dispatched guards to find Elena, though Maya suspected the healer had fled the moment she could. Vera began cross-referencing the new information with her existing intelligence. And Milo held Maya like she might disappear, his forehead pressed to hers, the bond between them vibrating with emotion too complex to name. "You could have died," he said roughly, "but I didn't, and now we know their plan." Maya pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "We can stop this, Milo. We can turn their invasion into a trap." "How?" "They're expecting to surprise us during the festival. If we cancel it or increase security, they'll know we're onto them and adjust their plans." "Then we don't cancel it." Maya's mind was racing, pieces falling into place. "We hold the festival exactly as planned, but we prepare. We position our loyalists. We fortify the castle without making it obvious. And when Mordecai's forces arrive expecting an easy victory, we destroy them." Milo's smile was savage. "But we'll need allies, other packs who aren't compromised by the conspiracy." "I know someone," Vera said quietly. "Alpha Isla of the West March pack. She and your father were close friends, and she refused to join Mordecai's coalition. She'd help if we asked." "Then we ask." Milo looked at Maya. "But you're not going. You're staying here where it's safe." "Safe?" Maya laughed without humor. "Milo, I was being poisoned in my own chambers by a wolf I trusted. Nowhere is safe. But we can make it safer by working together instead of you trying to protect me from everything." The argument that followed was heated but brief. Milo wanted Maya locked in the castle under heavy guard. Maya wanted to continue gathering intelligence. They compromised on Maya staying within the territory but with freedom to move and investigate, always accompanied by guards Milo personally selected. It wasn't perfect, but it was workable. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Alpha Isla arrived with 50 of her finest warriors, all sworn to secrecy. Milo's loyal guards were positioned throughout the castle in ways that seemed natural: extra festival security, honor guards for visiting dignitaries, routine patrol rotations. Maya worked with Vera to identify every conspirator in the castle. 23 names became 23 marked targets, wolves who would be quietly contained the moment Mordecai made his move. And Maya prepared herself. She worked with Elena's replacement healer to purge the sedatives from her system and spent hours meditating, strengthening her truth-showing gift. If this came down to a battle of narratives, she needed to be ready to show the pack exactly who their enemies were. The autumn festival arrived with golden sunlight and crisp air. The pack gathered in celebration, laughing and drinking and dancing, unaware of the army creeping toward their borders. Maya stood on the battlements with Milo, watching the forest line for movement. "They'll come at dusk," Milo said quietly, "when visibility is poor and the pack is distracted by the feast." "Are you afraid?" Maya asked. "Terrified." His hand found hers. "But not of the battle. Of losing you. Of failing everyone who depends on me." "You won't fail. You have something Mordecai doesn't." "What's that?" "Truth. And people who fight for it willingly, rather than being manipulated into service." Maya squeezed his hand. "That makes us stronger than any conspiracy." As the sun began its descent, horns sounded from the forest, the signal that enemies had been spotted. The festival continued below, but on the walls, warriors took their positions with grim efficiency. Mordecai's forces emerged from the tree line like a dark tide. Hundreds of wolves, far more than Maya had expected. They moved in organized ranks, clearly expecting minimal resistance. The gates opened right on schedule, just as the conspirators had planned. Stephen and 3 other traders had positioned themselves to welcome the invading force, their faces eager with anticipated victory. What they didn't expect was Marcus and 50 guards waiting just inside, weapons drawn. "Surprise," Marcus said pleasantly, then gave the signal. The gates slammed shut, trapping the advance guard inside while the main force remained outside. On the battlements, archers took aim. Not to kill, not yet, but to make Mordecai's wolves think twice about their easy victory. "Alpha Mordecai!" Milo's voice boomed across the field, amplified by Alpha authority. "You come to my territory uninvited, with an army at your back. Explain yourself before I consider this an act of war." A figure stepped forward from the enemy ranks. Mordecai himself, looking every inch the distinguished leaders. "There is no need for explanations, Milo. Your time is over. Step down peacefully, and I'll show mercy to your pack." "Mercy? Like the mercy you showed my sister when you ordered her murdered?" Milo's voice was cold as winter stone. "Like the mercy you showed Maya when you had her framed and exiled? Your mercy is worthless. Bold words from a king whose castle I'm about to conquer." Mordecai gestured, and his forces began advancing. "Your gates are open. Your people are compromised. Surrender now, and I'll make your death quick." "My gates are a trap. My people are loyal, and you're the one who should surrender." Milo nodded to Maya. She stepped forward, letting the bond surge through her as she reached for her gift. But this time, she didn't show memories or present moments. She showed intention. The truth of what Mordecai planned flooded outward from her. Not just the invasion, but everything. The decades of manipulation, the wolves he'd corrupted or killed, the lies he'd spread, the empire of fear and control he intended to build on Milo's corpse. Every wolf on that battlefield felt it, saw it, understood exactly what they were fighting for, not justice or strength, but one old wolf's ambition. The effect was immediate. Some of Mordecai's wolves stumbled, their conviction shaken. Others looked at their alpha with new suspicion, and a few, the ones who'd been coerced or threatened into service, and simply laid down their weapons. "Lies!" Mordecai roared. "She's manipulating you with dark magic. Don't believe—" "The bond doesn't lie," Milo interrupted. "True mates can't deceive through their connection. Every wolf here knows that, which means everything Maya just showed you is truth." More of Mordecai's forces were wavering now. The certainty of easy victory had evaporated, replaced by doubt and fear. "Then we take the castle by force," Mordecai snarled, shifting to his wolf form. "Kill them all!" He charged, and his most loyal followers charged with him, but they ran straight into Isla's warriors, who'd been concealed in the shadows of the battlements. The clash was brutal and swift. Maya watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. They'd anticipated every move, countered every strategy. Mordecai's conspiracy had spent decades planning this moment, but they'd never accounted for someone like Maya, someone who'd survived in darkness and learned to fight with truth instead of just claws. The fighting lasted less than an hour. Mordecai's forces, demoralized by Maya's revelation and outnumbered by the combined strength of 3 packs, broke and scattered. Those who surrendered were taken into custody. Those who fled were tracked by Isla's hunters, and Mordecai himself. Milo cornered him near the forest edge, both alphas in their massive wolf forms. The fight was savage and final. Mordecai fought with the desperation of someone who knew this was his last stand, but Milo fought with the fury of a son avenging his sister. When it ended, Mordecai lay dead in the grass, his throat torn out, his conspiracy shattered beyond repair. The pack erupted in celebration as word spread. The invasion had failed. The conspirators were captured. Their alpha had defended them against impossible odds. But Maya stood apart from the celebration, watching as healers tended the wounded and guards secured prisoners. The victory felt hollow somehow, tainted by all the death it had required. Milo found her on the battlements as the sun rose, both of them exhausted and blood-stained. "It's over," he said quietly. "Is it?" Maya looked out over the territory. "We defeated Mordecai, but he was right about one thing. There will always be wolves who want power, who'll scheme and betray and murder for it. Then we'll stop them, together. Milo pulled her close, and Maya felt the bond settle into something warm and certain. We've proven we can protect the pack, that we're stronger united than any conspiracy trying to tear us apart. I never thought I'd have this, Maya whispered. After 3 years in the dark, I'd convinced myself that survival was enough, that I didn't deserve more than shadows and scraps. You deserve everything. Milo tilted her face up to meet his gaze. You're the strongest wolf I've ever known, Maya. Not because you survived, but because you turned survival into resistance, into victory. Maya kissed him, pouring 3 years of loneliness and fear and desperate hope into the contact. When they broke apart, the sun was fully risen, painting the castle in shades of gold. What happens now? She asked. Now we rebuild. Root out the last of the conspirators, strengthen our alliances, prove that honor and truth can triumph over lies. Milo's smile was tired but genuine, and somewhere in all that, we figure out how to be mates instead of just warriors. The pact ceremony 3 days later was nothing like the rushed recognition that had preceded the invasion. This time, the entire pack gathered willingly, eagerly, to witness Milo and Maya's formal bonding. Maya stood before them in borrowed finery that actually fit now. Weeks of proper food had begun restoring the weight she'd lost. Her hair was clean and styled, her face healed of wounds, her posture straight and proud. She looked nothing like the ghost who'd hidden in cellars. 3 years ago, I was exiled from this pack for a crime I didn't commit, Maya said, her voice carrying across the assembly. I should have died in the wilderness. Instead, I survived by hiding in the very heart of my enemy's stronghold. I lived in darkness, eating scraps, watching from shadows while the wolf who murdered Elaine walked free above me. The pack listened in absolute silence, hanging on her words. I could have run, could have tried to find another pack, another life, but the bond wouldn't let me. Even before I met Milo, even before I knew he was my mate, something kept me here, kept me fighting, kept me believing that truth would eventually triumph. She looked at Milo, at the man who'd listened when no one else would. And it did. Not easily, not without cost. But truth won because people chose to believe it, chose to fight for it, chose to stand against corruption even when it seemed easier to look away. Maya turned back to the pack. I'm not asking you to forget the past. I was exiled. I did live like a rat in your walls. Those facts don't change. But I'm asking you to see what I've become through adversity, to judge me not by where I've been, but by what I'm willing to fight for. The silence held for a heartbeat. Then Marcus stepped forward, dropping to one knee. I judged you wrongly, he said gruffly. Believed Cameron's lies because it was easier than questioning. I'm sorry, my lady, and I'm honored to serve an alpha with the wisdom to see truth where I saw only convenience. One by one, other wolves followed, guards, servants, council members. Even those who'd doubted, who'd whispered about the convenient mate, now bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Not everyone. Maya could still see skepticism in some faces, resistance in others. But it was a beginning. Milo took her hand, and together they made their vows before the pack. The ceremony was ancient and binding, witnessed by every wolf and sealed with blood and bond. When it was done, when Maya officially became Luna of Blackthorn Castle, she felt something shift inside her. The fear that had lived in her chest for 3 years finally released its grip. She was home. Not hiding, not surviving, but truly home. The weeks that followed were filled with rebuilding. The remaining conspirators were tried and sentenced, some executed, others exiled to face the same fate they'd condemned Maya to. Elena was never found, having disappeared the day of the failed invasion, but Vera assured them the healer wouldn't survive long outside pack protection. Maya threw herself into learning her role as Luna. She worked with the servants to improve living conditions, established new protocols for vetting loyalty, and began training other wolves in techniques for detecting deception. Her truth-showing gift became not just a weapon, but a tool for justice. And slowly, painfully, she began to trust again. To let wolves close without assuming betrayal. To sleep without nightmares of cellars and darkness. 6 months after the invasion, Milo found her in the garden pavilion where Elaine had died. Maya visited it often, tending the flowers that had grown wild in 3 years of neglect. "I never asked," Milo said quietly, sitting beside her. "Why this place? Why do you keep coming here?" "Because Elaine died trying to expose the truth. And for 3 years, no one remembered that. They only remembered the convenient story Cameron told." Maya touched a bloom that was finally opening after winter. "Someone should remember what really happened. Someone should tend the place where she fought back. She'd be proud of you." Milo's voice was thick with emotion. "Of everything you've become." Maya smiled sadly. "I hope so. I hope wherever she is, she knows Cameron didn't win, that justice found him eventually. Justice found him because you refused to give up." Milo pulled Maya close, and she leaned into his warmth. "Because you survived when you should have died and fought when you could have hidden." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Maya thought about the girl she'd been 3 years ago, terrified and broken, exiled into darkness. And she thought about the woman she'd become, strong and purposeful, fighting for something larger than survival. "Milo?" Maya said suddenly. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air like a benediction. Milo went very still, then turned to face her with wonder written across his features. "You're certain?" "The healer confirmed it this morning, about 6 weeks along." Maya placed a hand on her still flat stomach. "I wasn't sure how to tell you. With everything we've been dealing with the pack still recovering from the invasion, this is perfect." Milo's hands covered hers, his eyes shining with tears he didn't bother hiding. "This is everything, Maya. New life, new hope, proof that we didn't just survive but thrived." Maya felt tears of her own escaping. "I'm terrified. What if I'm not ready? What if you survived 3 years in impossible conditions, defeated a conspiracy that had decades to prepare, brought down wolves who thought themselves untouchable?" Milo's smile was fierce with pride. "If you can do all that, you can handle anything motherhood throws at you." "We can handle it," Maya corrected. "Together." The word felt right. Together. Not alone in darkness, not hiding from threats, but standing side by side against whatever came. The announcement of Maya's pregnancy sent the pack into joyful chaos. An heir, a symbol of the future, a child born of the bond that had survived exile and conspiracy. But Maya's favorite reaction came from Thomas, who'd been promoted to head of household security after proving his loyalty repeatedly. "A baby?" The boy's eyes went wide. "Does this mean I have to protect a tiny person too? Ghost girl, I can barely protect you, and you can actually fight." Maya laughed, a sound that came easier now than it had in years. "I think you'll manage. You've had practice keeping difficult wolves alive." As her pregnancy progressed, Maya found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. 3 years ago, she'd been condemned to death by exile. She'd survived through cunning and determination, living like a ghost in the belly of the beast. But she'd been wrong about one thing. She'd thought survival was enough. Thought that simply living another day was victory. Now she understood that survival was just the beginning. What mattered was what you did with the life you'd fought so hard to keep. She'd exposed corruption, dismantled a conspiracy, helped build something stronger in its place, and now she would bring new life into a pack that had tried to destroy her. That was victory. That was justice. That was proof that truth, no matter how long it took to emerge, would eventually triumph. On a spring morning, 8 months after the invasion, Maya gave birth to a daughter. She was small but fierce, with her mother's dark hair and her father's silver eyes. They named her Elaine, after the sister who'd died seeking truth. Milo held their daughter with tears streaming down his face. "She's perfect." Maya, exhausted but euphoric, watched her mate cradle their child. "She's ours. And she'll grow up in a world where the truth matters, where wolves like Cameron and Mordecai can't hide in shadows forever." "Because of you," Milo said softly. "Because you refused to let injustice stand." Maya looked at her daughter and felt something settle in her chest, a peace she'd thought lost forever. She'd started this journey as a broken exile, hiding in darkness, convinced her life was over. But life didn't end in the cellars of Blackthorn Castle. It transformed there, hardened, became something that couldn't be easily destroyed. And now, holding her child while her mate watched with love and wonder, Maya understood the truth she'd been searching for all along. Survival wasn't the end goal, it was the foundation. What you built on that foundation, that was what mattered. Love, justice, family, hope. She'd built all of it from nothing but darkness and determination. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Outside the window, spring rain fell on the garden pavilion where Elaine had died. But inside the castle, in a room filled with warmth and light, new life bloomed. The ghost of Blackthorny Castle had finally stepped into the sun, and she was never going back to the darkness again.